Chapter 176. The king of Yu must die. This was Yi Xian's stance. The Yu and Chu kingdoms had waged war against the Jiang kingdom, and countless soldiers of the Jiang kingdom had died in battle. The two kingdoms must pay the price. Yi Xian walked out of the main hall and headed straight for the Yu kingdom's treasury. The main hall was filled with wails of grief. An hour later, Yi Xian left the Yu kingdom's imperial palace. This time, Yi Xian didn't choose to leave on Black Wolf. Instead, he took the drunken Immortal In's cloud ship because he could check his treasures on the cloud ship. As for Kuraki Academy and the Great Cloud Empire in the Central Plains, he naturally wouldn't go there to throw his life away. The Jiang Kingdom might have won, but Kuraki Academy and the Dark World hadn't suffered much damage. Especially the Great Cloud Empire, whose overall strength was still there. He had to take it slow. His top priority now was to improve his strength and the strength of those around him. Moreover, he had to establish the Dao soldiers of Kuraki Academy. Yi Xian was the only guest on the entire cloud ship. This was a convenience that the drunken Immortal In had given him. In a luxurious private room, Yi Xian was sitting on the floor. At the moment, he was checking his treasures. He had obtained a lot of things after looting the Chu and Yu kingdoms. Among them, there were 4 billion gold coins. Including his own, he now had almost 6 billion gold coins. Apart from gold coins, there were more than 2 million supreme-grade spirit stones and 12 jade-grade spirit stones. Among them, there were a total of 25 earth-rank cultivation techniques, martial techniques, and movement techniques. In addition to the ones he'd accumulated in the past, he had around 35 in total. As for the supreme-grade spiritual weapons, he had obtained a total of 36 this time. In addition to his previous savings, he now had 85 supreme-grade spiritual weapons. Apart from that, there were also light-grade spirit weapons, but not many, only about 6. This time, he was lucky because there were 2 swords among them. Swords. Yi Xian brought the 2 swords in front of him. The 2 swords were different from the swift shadow sword. One of the swords was wider, and there was a lightning-like pattern on the blade. The hilt was pitch black, and it felt bone-chilling to the touch. The other sword was thinner, slightly longer, and both sides of the blade gave off a chilly glow. 2 light-grade low-grade swords. Devour? Yi Xian didn't hesitate and directly devoured it. As soon as the 2 swords entered his body, they turned into countless streams of energy and dispersed towards Yi Xian's limbs and bones, Nether Passage realm. With his current strength, he wasn't strong enough to fight against the 10,000 laws boundary. However, if he reached the Divine Combination realm, he would be able to fight against the 10,000 laws boundary. Even if he couldn't win, he wouldn't be unable to fight back. If he were to face tens of thousands of Dharma state experts right now, he would definitely be beaten up. He had to reach the Divine Unity realm. As for the 2 swift shadow swords, he did not devour them because they were extremely useful to him now. They were not any weaker than the exquisite spirit sword. Now that he was facing an enemy, the 2 flying swords were very lethal. The 2 swords could be kept. Moreover, with his current wealth, he was entirely capable of finding even more swords from the Immortal Indulgence in the future. Inside the cloud ship, Yi Xian was frantically devouring the energy within the bright stage. His aura was also growing, and the spirit elegant sword in his body was also trembling slightly as it continuously absorbed the energy. Outside. What Yi Xian had done in Chu and Yu had quickly spread throughout the entire Qing province. Now, Yi Xian's reputation was like the sun at high noon in the entire Qing province. And in Jiang country, Yi Xian's reputation had reached its peak. Every day, countless people would come to the foot of the mountain of Azure Billows Academy. Some wanted to enter Azure Billows Academy, while others wanted to meet Yi Xian. As for Dark World, Kuraki Academy, and Great Cloud Empire, ever since the battle at Mizar City, these 3 forces had not made any moves. One day later, the cloud ship arrived at Jiang country. After the cloud ship stopped, Yi Xian did not leave the ship. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. On the deck of the cloud ship, two delicate and pretty ladies were whispering. I saw that swordsman yesterday. How did he look? Very handsome. Even if he didn't come out after entering the box, we can't go in, sigh. Wow, look at your infatuated look. He's the sword master. Don't think too much. So what if he's the sword master? Why don't we drug him? Aya, you damned girl, don't you have any shame? Cough. A light cough came from behind the two ladies. The two ladies turned around and were shocked to see the person who came. In an instant, their faces turned red like the rosy clouds in the sky. They were extremely shy. The person who came was Yi Xian. Yi Xian walked down the ship. Just as he was about to disembark, he looked up at the sky with a face full of worry. Being too handsome is also a kind of trouble. After saying that, he jumped off the cloud ship. On the deck, the two ladies covered their faces in embarrassment. After Yi Xian got off the ship, he went straight to Azure Billow's academy. He was still in the Nether Passage realm. Devouring the two swords did not help him reach the Divine Unity realm, nor did it help the Spirit Elegant sword. This made him quite disappointed. At the same time, he also realized that after he reached the Nether Passage realm, his requirements for swords were getting higher and higher. Especially the Spirit Elegant sword. In order to reach the Truth middle grade, he had to devour countless bright grade swords. At first, he thought that it would be at most 4 or 5, but now it seemed that he was too naive. If he and the Spirit Elegant sword wanted to improve further, they would probably need at least 10 bright grade swords, or even more. At the thought of this, Yi Xian suddenly felt that he was very poor again. Not long after, Yi Xian entered the city. At this moment, the imperial capital was in a state of jubilation. The state of Jiang had won. When the armies of the state of Chu, state of Yu, Karaki Academy, and the Great Cloud Empire pressed down, the people of the state of Jiang were naturally terrified. Because if the state of Jiang perished, they would become slaves and their fates would be very tragic. And the state of Jiang had won. Looking at the jubilant people in the city, a smile appeared on Yi Xian's face. Protect the country? He did not think too much. He only knew that he, the soldiers of the state of Jiang, and the students of the Azure Billows Academy had fought to the death in Mizar City, allowing many people to survive. Responsibility. When he was young, his mother suddenly ran away. At that moment, looking at his petite sister, he felt a sense of responsibility for the first time. He had to protect his sister well. This was the responsibility of an elder brother. When he grew up, as the heir of the Yi family, he had an additional responsibility at that moment. To seek benefits for the family, to fight for the family. Although the family later abandoned him and his sister, he had never let down the Yi family. And now, he was the dean of the Azure Billows Academy, the state scholar of the state of Yi, and the big brother of Bai Zhe and Mo Yinqi. The responsibility had always been there, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And as a man, he should shoulder the responsibility that belonged to him. Tired? Yes, he would be very tired. But if he did not have a good family and a good father, if he was not tired, then he could only be a good-for-nothing. Thinking of this, suddenly, a sword intent emitted from Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian was stunned. This sword intent came out on its own. This sword intent has its own consciousness. Yi Xian was shocked by his own thoughts. Another thing was, since it was the good and evil sword intent, which meant that there was a good side, then there must be an evil side. But, what about the evil side? What was the power of the evil thought's sword intent? This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Yi Xian was a little curious. Are you state scholar Yi? At this moment, a voice suddenly came from beside Yi Xian's ears. Yi Xian stopped and turned around. On his right, stood a lady holding a flower butterfly umbrella. The lady was beautiful and had an excellent figure. At this moment, the lady was sizing him up, her eyes filled with suspicion. As the lady's voice fell, the surrounding people also looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said seriously, I am not State Scholar Yi. State Scholar Yi is handsome, dignified, talented, and elegant. His handsomeness is indescribable. How can I be State Scholar Yi? I am not even 1/10,000th of him. The lady, after saying that, Yi Xian did not blush or pant. He turned around and walked into the distance. At this moment, the lady suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side. She took out a portrait. In the portrait, it was Yi Xian. The lady looked at the portrait, then turned to look at Yi Xian. She said softly, very similar. Yi Xian. At this moment, the lady suddenly stood in front of Yi Xian. She stared straight at Yi Xian. Are you? Yi Xian was a little helpless. What are you trying to do? Hearing Yi Xian's words, the lady's eyes lit up. You really are. As she said that, the umbrella in her hand suddenly closed. In the next moment, the umbrella in her hand was pointed at Yi Xian's forehead. Sword force. Sword intent. A grandmaster of the sword Dao. Yi Xian was shocked. This lady is actually a grandmaster of the sword Dao. Moreover, the umbrella in her hand is actually a sword at the true grade. No, it should be called an umbrella sword. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. A sword intent suddenly blocked in front of him. Kindness sword intent. The kindness sword intent formed a thick shield that forcefully blocked the lady's umbrella sword. There was a trace of surprise in the lady's eyes when she saw Yi Xian's sword intent. What a strange sword intent. I've never seen it before. As soon as she said that, her lily-white hand spun lightly. The umbrella sword suddenly unfolded. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly blasted 30 meters away. But in the next moment, a flying sword pierced the lady's umbrella sword. Bang! The lady retreated repeatedly. This time, she retreated over 60 meters. After the lady stopped, she looked up at Yi Xian. There was a trace of excitement in her eyes. Sword master. You've really become a sword master. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. You were sent here by Kuraki Academy? The lady was slightly stunned, and then she shook her head. I'm Jian Chu from the Jian clan. My younger brother is Jian Shaowang. You should know him, right? Jian Shaowang? Yi Xian was stunned. He naturally knew her. Because Jian Shaowang and Gong Qingcheng had helped him in the Ning Kingdom's secret realm. Jian Chu sized Yi Xian up and said, I was about to head to the Central Divine Prefecture, but I suddenly heard that you've become a sword master. So, I came to have a spar with you. You're very formidable, and I might not be able to defeat you now. Yi Xian smiled, you're not bad as well. Jian Chu walked over to Yi Xian and asked curiously, how did you become a sword master? Can you share your experience with me? Yi Xian was stunned. This fellow is asking me so openly. Isn't she afraid at all? Jian Chu blinked. Can I? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, why don't you join my Azure Billow Academy? We can have an exchange in the Sword Dao in the future. What do you think? Jian Chu didn't even think about it and immediately nodded. All right. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. I've just returned to Beijing. After I catch my breath, I'll wait until midnight. Does anyone have any objections? No? All right. Thank you very much for your understanding. I love all of you. End of this chapter. Chapter 177. Great. Yi Xian was stunned. She agreed just like that? Yi Xian wanted to confirm it, so he asked, are you willing to join Sanglan Academy? Jian Chu nodded, yes. You are so powerful, I should be able to gain a lot by following you. However, if I am stronger than you one day, I will have to leave. Yi Xian smiled, sure. Let's go back to Sanglan Academy with me. Just like that, Sanglan Academy had one more Sword Dao Grandmaster student. Of course, Yi Xian was very happy. Sword Dao Grandmaster. Moreover, from his previous exchange with Jian Chuchu, she was already at the peak of Sword Dao Grandmaster and could reach Sword Master at any time. If Jian Chuchu reached Sword Master, Zhanglan Academy would have one more super warrior. After Yi Xian brought Jian Chuchu back to Zhanglan Academy, he immediately gathered all the students. There were less than 30 students left in Zhanglan Academy. However, after the battle at Mizar City, they had matured a lot. In front of Zhanglan Palace, Yi Xian faced everyone. On his left and right were Bai Zai, Mo Yunqi, Ji Anji and Jian Chuchu who had just joined Zhanglan Academy. Yi Xian walked in front of the students. Stay alive, okay? Everyone was stunned, they didn't understand Yi Xian's meaning. Yi Xian said softly, many of our brothers died in Mizar City. Everyone was silent. Yi Xian said, one of my brothers once said, if you are not strong enough, you will be beaten to death. That is what we deserve. Let me say this to all of you. This world isn't so beautiful, it is very cruel. If you are strong, it means you have a better chance of survival. From now on, all of you will double your daily cultivation. As he spoke, he opened his right hand and a bright grade spiritual artifact appeared in his hand. At the sight of this bright rank spirit weapon, many of the students were stunned. Yi Xian said, do you want it? Everyone nodded. Yi Xian said, do you want it? Sure, whoever reaches Divine Unity Realm first will have it. Divine Combination Realm. The expressions of some people instantly turned bitter. Because among them, there were some who were only in the levitation realm. At this time, Yi Xian continued, in addition to this, there will be an additional rule. There will be a test every month, and the top 3 will be rewarded with an Earth rank martial technique and cultivation technique. The first place will also be rewarded with an additional top grade spirit weapon. As for the last person, he will be expelled from Zhanglan Academy. When they heard Yi Xian's words, everyone present was stunned. Mo Yunqi's group of 3 looked at Yi Xian as well. Expulsion from school? This was a very serious matter. Yi Xian said indifferently, there are rewards and punishments. What I said just now will be implemented from this moment on. Now, dismiss. The expressions of all the students instantly became solemn when they heard this. Expulsion from school. Right now, the people of Jiang country were proud to be a student of Zhanglan Academy. If they were expelled, it would mean that all the glory would vanish into thin air. No one wanted to leave. In an instant, the hearts of all the students of Zhanglan Academy had tightened. After the students dispersed, Mo Yunqi walked over to Yi Xian's side and said softly, Bandit Yi, isn't this too cruel? Yi Xian shook his head, you've seen the Dao soldiers of Karaki Academy, the 9th mercenary group, and the Black Flame army of the Great Cloud Empire. How do you think our students compare to them? Mo Yunqi fell silent. Because there was no comparison at all. Yi Xian said softly, if we don't be cruel to them today, then our enemies will be even more cruel to them in the future. As for the 3 of you, Senior Mo, Senior Bai, and Senior Anji, your strengths aren't sufficient, and there's quite a gap between you and the true monstrous geniuses of the Central Divine Prefecture. Work hard. I'll do my best to get all the resources all of you need. I only hope that when we look back in a very, very long time from now, all of our brothers will still be here. This chapter isn't finished, please continue to the next page. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Mo Yunqi's group of 3 remained silent. All of them had attained the Divine Combination Realm, and Ji Anji was at the Divine Combination Realm as well. However, this was utterly insufficient. There was a difference in strength amongst the Divine Combination Realm as well. The 3 of them really weren't very strong when it came to defeating the Central Divine Prefecture. A short moment later, Mo Yunqi spoke abruptly, let's double our cultivation as well. Bai Zai nodded. Ji Anji just gnawed on his steamed bun and didn't say anything. Jian Chuchu spoke abruptly, the Great Cloud Empire is very formidable. The 3 of them gazed at Jian Chuchu, and then she spoke in a serious tone. I made some calculations just now. If Azure Billow Academy were to fight the Great Cloud Empire head-on, then Azure Billow Academy wouldn't have any chance of winning. Right, it seems like all of you have two more enemies, Karaki Academy and the Dark World. If these two powers join the battle as well, then your chances of winning will be negative. Mo Yinchi spoke with slight displeasure. We won just now. Jian Chuchu gazed at Mo Yinchi with slight pity. You're so stupid. Mo Yinchi almost went berserk. Jian Chuchu said, if Yi Xian attains the Divine Combination Realm, then it means that a Dharma Realm expert will appear in the Central Divine Prefecture. The expressions of Mo Yinchi's group instantly changed when they heard Jian Chuchu. They'd actually forgotten that. The Dharma Realm. If Yi Xian's strength improved, then it meant that Karaki Academy and the Dark World could dispatch Dharma Realm experts. At that time, how could Azure Billow Academy resist the Dharma Realm experts? After a while, the three of them turned and left. Cultivation. Cultivation that risked one's life. Whether it was the state of Jiang or Azure Billow Academy, they hadn't won yet. To put it more seriously, this was just the beginning. Because the Dharma Realm was the core combat power of these powers. Yi Xian arrived at the Martyr's Palace. He sat on the ground, and after a long silence, he suddenly spoke softly, Old Ji, Azure Billow Academy is getting better and better. Don't worry, I'll lead everyone to better things. I'll also let Azure Billow Academy of the Central Divine Prefecture know that our state of Jiang's Azure Billow Academy isn't inferior to them at all. The Martyr's Palace was brightly lit, and only Yi Xian's murmur could be heard. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian lay down in the palace and fell asleep. Early in the morning, a red sun slowly rose from the horizon, and all things awakened. Yi Xian had woken up. At this moment, a thick blanket had appeared on his body, and it even carried a faint fragrance. Yi Xian smiled slightly, folded the blanket, and put it aside. Then, he walked out of the Martyr's Palace. Sunlight shone down, and Yi Xian stretched lazily. He said with a smile, everything is so familiar. Yi Xian suddenly turned his head to look. In the distance, Jiang Jiao was walking toward him. He was still dressed in silver armor, and he was still as good-looking as ever. Jiang Jiao walked up to Yi Xian. I've already chosen the people. Yi Xian nodded. Take me to them. Jiang Jiao turned around and led Yi Xian to an open space. There were 70 or so people standing in front of Yi Xian. The oldest was in his 30s, and the youngest was in his 20s. All 70 people exuded a murderous aura. One look and one could tell that they were battle-hardened warriors. When they saw Yi Xian, the 70 people knelt on one knee. Greetings, State Scholar Yi. The 70 people looked excited. They respected Yi Xian from the bottom of their hearts. At the side, Jiang Jiao sighed with emotion. Fortunately, Yi Xian had no evil intentions. Otherwise, it would be a piece of cake for him to topple the Jiang country's imperial family. Yi Xian's prestige in the Jiang country had already surpassed the Jiang country's imperial family. Not far away, Yi Xian said, Rise. The 70 people stood up and looked at Yi Xian with a trace of excitement in their eyes. Yi Xian said softly, From now on, you are students of my Azure Billow Academy. If you are unwilling, you can step forward. I won't force you. Not a single person stepped forward. Yi Xian nodded slightly. This chapter is not over. Please continue. He nodded slightly. From now on, I will give you the best resources and the best equipment. I will make you the most elite Dao soldiers in the Azure Prefecture. Of course, the training you will undergo will be cruel, extremely cruel. Moreover, there will be an assessment every month. The bottom 3 will be directly eliminated. Directly eliminated. Everyone's expression gradually turned solemn. Yi Xian turned to Jiang Jiao. Every month, I need 3 more soldiers to replace those who are eliminated. Jiang Jiao nodded. All right. Yi Xian said again, they will be released from the military. In the future, they may only listen to my orders. Jiang Jiao looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said, is that all right? Jiang Jiao was still silent. Yi Xian did not speak either. After a moment, Jiang Jiao said, you don't trust us? Yi Xian shook his head. I have my own selfish motives. This Dao soldier is the foundation of my Azure Billow Academy. I want to control it. If you don't agree, I will look for someone else. After this cavalry was trained, it would definitely be very terrifying in the future. He did not want this cavalry to fall into the hands of others. This was what he prepared for Azure Billow Academy. Jiang Jiao said indifferently, don't worry. We will not touch this cavalry. After speaking, she turned and left. There was a trace of self-ridicule on the corners of her mouth. Yi Xian suddenly appeared before Jiang Jiao. Jiang Jiao looked at Yi Xian with a rather cold expression. What? Yi Xian said in a light voice, are you angry? Jiang Jiao nodded. I am unhappy in my heart. She was unhappy not because Jiang country could not touch this Dao soldier, but because she felt that Yi Xian did not trust her. Yi Xian smiled lightly. I hope that you will lead this cavalry in the future. Jiang Jiao was stunned. Yi Xian said in a light voice, little Jiao, I do not want your imperial family to touch this cavalry. Because if you let them touch it, the purpose of this cavalry's existence might change. To put it bluntly, even if I am no longer around, Azure Billow Academy must have the strength to protect itself. And you, I trust you. Jiang Jiao went silent for a moment and said, don't worry. This cavalry only belongs to Azure Billow Academy. It will not belong to Jiang country's imperial family. Jiang country's imperial family does not have the qualifications to touch this cavalry. But if Jiang country is in trouble in the future, I hope that this cavalry will be able to defend Jiang country. Yi Xian nodded. Of course. But if Jiang country's imperial family is in internal strife, then they will absolutely not participate. Jiang Jiao gazed at Yi Xian. With both of us here, there won't be any chaos. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. Jiang Jiao spoke in a low voice, I will be training this cavalry from now on. Who do you intend to train them? Yi Xian smiled. I already have someone in mind. Yi Xian and Jiang Jiao sat on chairs within a hall, and Feng Lan, Mo Yuan, and Lu Jioga were standing before them. After a long time, Mo Yuan suddenly said, you want the three of us to train this Dao soldier for you? Yi Xian nodded. Mo Yuan spoke in a low voice, do you know that training a Dao soldier requires a huge amount of money? Yi Xian replied, I know. I'll deal with the money. Mo Yuan and Feng Lan gazed at Lu Jioga because she was from the school of the militarist. Lu Jioga pondered deeply for a moment, and then she gazed at Yi Xian. I will let them cultivate a cultivation technique called the murderous energy technique. This cultivation technique is suitable for soldiers to cultivate, but it's extremely expensive. Just cultivating this cultivation technique for a single soldier would cost at least 50 million gold coins, and that's in addition to everything else. Yi Xian almost fainted when he heard that. 50 million. Meanwhile, Lu Jioga said, however, in the future, they will be one of the most terrifying Dao soldiers in the Azure continent. Of course, the precondition is that you're willing to spend the money. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he gritted his teeth. Let's do it. End of this chapter. Chapter 178. Let's do it. Yi Xian knew that Sung Lan Academy's current strength was insufficient and had to improve. It was impossible for them to improve slowly because Kuraki Academy, Great Cloud Empire, and Dark World wouldn't give them the chance to develop slowly. If they wanted to develop, they could only develop quickly. And rapid development required money. Lots and lots of money. Fortunately, he had already prepared the equipment for this Dao soldier. Otherwise, he would not be able to establish this Dao soldier. Even if he could establish it, it would be a mediocre one. Even so, he was still panicking. Because this cavalry would consume a lot of money. No, it would burn money. Jiang Jiu also had a grave expression. Even if the state of Jiang exhausted all its resources, it might not be able to support this cavalry. And Yi Xian had to support a group of Tsanglan Academy students. He couldn't rob them every day, right? Lu Jiuge glanced at Yi Xian. Tsanglan Academy must make a profit. Yi Xian faced Lu Jiuge, and Lu Jiuge said indifferently, "You want to support an academy by yourself? That is not realistic, and you can't do that. Tsanglan Academy is now a major faction in the state of Jiang and can make a profit." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "How do we make a profit?" Lu Jiuge thought about it and said, "Think about it yourself." Yi Xian, profit. After the meeting, Yi Xian brought Jiang Jiu to Tsanglan Palace. Mo Yinqi and the others were there. They were discussing how to make a profit. If Yi Xian was to bear the burden of the entire Tsanglan Academy, it would be impossible. They must make a profit. After discussing for a while, Jian Chuchu suddenly said, "Isn't this a very simple matter?" The crowd looked at Jian Chuchu. Jian Chuchu blinked her eyes and said, "First, we can collect tuition fees. We can collect tuition fees from the students, including their daily living expenses. Of course, we can waive the tuition fees for those who are poor, but we can't waive the tuition fees for those who have mines." Saying that, she raised 2 fingers. Second, open up the Tsanglan Academy. The people of Jiang country, as long as they have the money, they can enter the academy to visit, and even watch the students cultivate. Apart from that, Tsanglan Academy's rear mountain is so big that it can be developed properly. Let's see if we can discover the existence of any spirit mine or the like. If there is, then Tsanglan Academy will be rich. Finished speaking, she raised another finger. Thirdly, even if there isn't any at the back of the mountain, we can let the students of Tsanglan Academy search everywhere, go to those ownerless boundless mountain ranges to search. Once they find one, they can immediately occupy it and send people to excavate it. At this point, she stopped. Yi Xian quickly said, "Go on, go on." Jian Chuchu glanced at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "We can let the academy students form teams to go down the mountain to gain experience. They can accept some mercenary missions and earn some cultivation fees. Firstly, they can train themselves. Secondly, they can increase the reputation of the Azure Billow Academy." Yi Xian nodded. Sure. Continue." Jian Chuchu's lips curled up slightly. "Do you know what makes the aristocratic families and the major forces the most?" Everyone shook their heads. The few of them were very ignorant. Although Jiang Jiu was the princess of the country of Jiang, she spent most of her time in the military camp and rarely understood these things. Jian Chuchu glanced at them and said seriously, "It's to collect protection fees." "Everyone," Jian Chuchu said, "we can collect a certain amount of protection fees from those aristocratic families and the major forces." Jiang Jiu frowned. "That's not good, right? This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page." Yi Xian also nodded. "It doesn't seem good." Jian Chuchu said, "Do you think it's bullying the weak?" Yi Xian and the others nodded. Jian Chuchu rolled her eyes. "All right. Let's change the method. You can work with them. Every year, as long as they pay a certain amount of money, you can let their disciples come to Tsanglan Academy to study. Of course, they won't be official students. They are just here to learn. If they perform well and are outstanding, Tsanglan Academy can turn them into official students. If you do this, those aristocratic families and the major forces will be very willing." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he looked at Mo Yinqi and the others. "What do all of you think?" Mo Yinqi thought for a moment, and then he said, "It's not impossible, but you have to control the degree. Otherwise, it might destroy the reputation of our Tsanglan Academy." Jian Chuchu nodded. "You have to control the degree. You can't be insatiably greedy. Moreover, you have to control the quota every year. There can't be too many. Only then will it seem precious. Yi Xian suddenly turned to Jian Chuchu. I'll appoint you as the chief treasurer of Tsanglan Academy. You'll be in charge of all these things. How about it? Jian Chuchu blinked. Chief treasurer? Yi Xian nodded. You'll be in charge of keeping the money we earn. Of course, if Tsanglan Academy needs it, you'll have to use it. Understand? Jian Chuchu thought for a moment, and then she said, Are there any benefits? Yi Xian nodded. I'll spar with you and share my insights in the sword Dao with you. Besides that, you'll get 10% of the money you earn every year. How about it, 10%? Jian Chuchu's eyes instantly lit up. She could already see a lot of money waving at her. Yi Xian still wanted to say something. However, Jian Chuchu suddenly slammed her palm on the table. Let's do it. Everyone was speechless. Just like that, Tsanglan Academy had another chief treasurer. Yi Xian turned to Ji Anji. Anji, you'll be in charge of the internal affairs. You can recruit people. You'll be in charge of all the internal affairs of Tsanglan Academy. Of course, don't forget to cultivate. Ji Anji nodded. Okay. Yi Xian asked again. If there's any difficulty, you have to tell me at any time. Understand? Ji Anji nodded again. Okay. What about me and Bai Zai? Mo Yinchi suddenly asked. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, Old Mo, the two of you will form a small team. The main mission of this small team is to search for talents all over Qingzhou. Look for those especially outstanding talents. If you find them and they're willing, you can recruit them into Tsanglan Academy. Talents. If Tsanglan Academy wanted to grow stronger, besides improving his own strength, he also needed more talents. He might be strong, but it didn't mean that the entire Tsanglan Academy was strong. What he wanted to do was that even if he, Yi Xian, was not around in the future, Tsanglan Academy would still be strong. After the meeting was dismissed, everyone started to act. For Tsanglan Academy, time was life now. They couldn't waste any of it. Because no one knew when Kuraki Academy, Great Cloud Empire, and Dark World would launch an attack. Yi Xian left Tsanglan Academy and arrived at Drunken Immortal Inn. Fifth floor master personally welcomed him. Looking at Yi Xian, the fifth building master said with a smile, My young friend, congratulations. Congratulations? Yi Xian was stunned. Fifth floor master said, defeating Great Cloud Empire, Kuraki Academy, and Dark World. Yi Xian shook his head. Senior should know that they didn't lose. Tsanglan Academy and Jiang Country didn't win either. Fifth floor master glanced at Yi Xian and said softly, Old man is relieved that young friend can understand this. Yi Xian said, Senior, for the next period of time, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. During this period, Tsanglan Academy might have a large number of things to purchase from Drunken Immortal Inn. A lot. Fifth floor master pondered for a moment and said, Young friend, don't worry. I will mobilize all the resources in Azure Province to satisfy young friend. Moreover, we will give young friend the best price. The higher-ups have already said that we won't profit from doing business with young friend. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Many thanks. This gratitude came from the bottom of his heart. Without Drunken Immortal in support, Tsanglan Academy's development speed would be much slower. Even if they had money, it would still be slower. Fifth floor master smiled. Young friend, you are too polite. Yi Xian said, Senior, there is one more thing. Are there any movements from Kuraki Academy, Dark World, and Great Cloud Empire? Fifth floor master shook his head. After the incident at Mizar City, Drunken Immortal Inn sent people to investigate. However, there was no news. However, we can be sure that they won't leave the matter at that. Now that it has come to this, they won't rest until one side is dead. When he spoke up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something and said solemnly, "Young friend, you must not casually attain the divine fusion realm right now." Yi Xian frowned. "Why?" Fifth floor master said in a low voice, "If you attain the divine fusion realm, then they will be able to dispatch Dharma realm experts. If you don't attain the divine fusion realm now, then they won't dare to dispatch Dharma realm and Dharma controlling realm experts against you. If they don't dispatch Dharma realm and Dharma controlling realm experts, then no one in Azure province can kill you. The number one expert beneath the Dharma realm." Under the circumstances that Anlancio wasn't here, Yi Xian was currently the number one expert beneath the Dharma realm in Azure province. Yi Xian fell silent. "I can't attain the divine fusion realm." After pondering deeply for a moment, Yi Xian nodded. "All right. I can seize this opportunity to stabilize my cultivation and develop Tsanglan Academy at the same time." Fifth floor master nodded. "Exactly. Young friend, your top priority now is to stabilize your cultivation and improve the overall strength of Tsanglan Academy. Also, young friend, you have to be wary of the Tsanglan Academy in the Central Plains." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Senior, do you mean that they might target Tsanglan Academy in the state of Jiang?" Fifth floor master said, "Previously, the state of Jiang's Tsanglan Academy was impoverished, so the Tsanglan Academy naturally looked down on it. But it's different now. The state of Jiang's Tsanglan Academy has such ferocious momentum. If it continues to develop like this, it will definitely become a superpower in the future, and they will definitely be jealous. Young friend, you must be careful. Don't let others harvest the fruits of your hard work." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I understand. It's fine if they don't have such thoughts. If they do, I don't mind having another enemy. Anyway, I already have enough. A few more won't make a difference." Fifth floor master shook his head and smiled bitterly. Yi Xian suddenly took out a gold card and placed it in front of fifth floor master. "Senior, there are 500 million gold coins in this card. I need 5 special flying swords like Phantom Shadow. If there are more, you can keep them for me." Fifth floor master nodded. "All right, I'll handle this matter." Yi Xian thanked him and bade farewell to fifth floor master. After leaving drunken Immortal Inn, Yi Xian returned to Tsanglan Academy. But when he passed by a street, a black-robed elder suddenly blocked his way. He knew this elder. He was the black-robed elder who had been with Anlancio previously. The black-robed elder looked coldly at Yi Xian. "You are extraordinarily lucky." Yi Xian said, "Old man, I advise you to be kind-hearted." The black-robed elder sneered. "Kind-hearted? Yi Xian, don't think that you can be cocky just because you have a sword immortal backing you. Old man, let me tell you. The Yin family is an aristocratic family with 10,000 years of history. Missen has the bloodline of a martial god. A lowly sword immortal is nothing in their eyes. If you approach Missen, you will only be courting your own destruction. P.S. I have let everyone down recently. I am willing to sacrifice my chrysanthemum for this. Come on. Be gay." End of this chapter. Chapter 179. A 10,000-year-old family? Yi Xian frowned. "What the hell?" The black-robed old man walked in front of Yi Xian and stared at Yi Xian. "There are many accidents in a person's life. What do you think?" As his voice fell, his right hand slowly clenched. A wave of power instantly enveloped Yi Xian. At this moment, on the right side of the street, an old man had appeared out of nowhere. The old man wore plain clothes and his long hair draped over his shoulders. He had a goatee. Seeing the plain-robed old man, the black-robed old man narrowed his eyes. A moment later, he coldly looked at Yi Xian and disappeared. The moment the black-robed old man disappeared, the plain-robed old man appeared in front of Yi Xian. The plain-robed old man sized up Yi Xian. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes, but this surprise soon turned into a complicated one. Yi Xian said, "Senior is from the Yin family?" The plain-robed old man said, "Yes." Yi Xian said seriously, "I think I'm quite outstanding." "What does Senior think?" The plain-robed old man was stunned. In the next instant, he shook his head. "Your thick skin really surprises the old man, Yi Xian," the plain-robed old man said. "Do you know that my Yin family values not only talent, but also bloodline and background? The battle at our level is not something you can imagine. Between aristocratic families, marriage alliances are common. The young miss is special, very special. The person she chooses can't be an ordinary person. Do you understand?" Yi Xian was silent. He said it very bluntly. The plain-robed old man sized up Yi Xian. "To be honest, you aren't bad. But for my Yin family, it's not enough. It's far from enough. Because there are many geniuses like you in my Yin family. As for your background, you don't seem to have any. If we talk about the sword immortal behind you, forgive the old man for being blunt. My Yin family has 4 sword immortals. 4 sword immortals." The old man continued, "What the old man said today is that I hope you can retreat in the face of difficulties. Don't harm yourself in the future, and don't make things difficult for the young Mississippi. Because in the future, if you can't bear the anger of everyone, she'll be the one to bear it. You're on your own." With that, he turned around and disappeared. On the street, Yi Xian was silent for a long time. In the end, he shook his head and smiled. "Shaoan, I'm under a lot of pressure." With that, he lowered his head and looked at the spirit-elegant sword in his hand. A moment later, he suddenly laughed out loud. "To hell with the aristocratic families. I don't have an identity, I don't have an aristocratic family, but I have a sword. With the 3 feet tall mountain in my hands, I can do whatever I want in the 10,000 heavens and 10,000 worlds. Shaoan, wait for me." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian had already disappeared at the end of the street. Yi Xian did not notice that at the top of the prison pagoda, the leftmost sword trembled slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. After Yi Xian disappeared, a woman suddenly appeared on the street. Her clothes were as white as snow. Enlanxiu. Looking at Yi Xian's departing figure, the corners of Enlanxiu's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a charming smile. This smile caused the heavens and the earth to pale in comparison. A moment later, Enlanxiu said softly, "I'll wait for you." With that, she turned around and walked into the distance. Soon, she disappeared into the night. This time, she really left. In the night, a sigh resounded. After Yi Xian returned to Tsanglan Academy, he began to cultivate sword skills. 1 sword to determine life and death, as well as the imperial sword technique that he had researched. Especially the imperial sword technique. He realized that there was still a lot of room for development in this imperial sword technique. What he needed to do now was to strengthen this imperial sword technique. He wanted to integrate the 1 sword to determine life and death sword technique into the imperial sword technique. If he succeeded, every flying sword that flew out in the future would be 1 sword to determine life and death. Its power would increase by several times. Apart from that, he also planned to make good use of his battle intent, sword momentum, and sword intent. He was still not proficient in using it, or it could be said that he could do better in all aspects. It was just that he had been too busy before, so he couldn't calm down and properly integrate them. But now, he had time to properly compose himself. Apart from Yi Xian, who was diligently cultivating, everyone in Tsanglan Academy was madly cultivating, especially the students. Because if they couldn't pass the assessment, they would be eliminated. Here, there was glory, cultivation resources, elixirs, martial skills, cultivation techniques. Who wanted to leave? No one wanted to leave, and if they didn't want to leave, they had to cultivate. Cultivate with their lives on the line. One had to know that there were countless people outside who wanted to squeeze in. Only with competition could there be progress. Apart from these students, the 70 soldiers from the state of Jiang that Yi Xian had recruited were also madly cultivating, and their cultivation was rather cruel. These soldiers needed to cultivate the murderous aura technique, and the murderous aura technique required killing intent. In order to train these soldiers' killing intent, Lu Jiuge would bring them to a mysterious place that even Yi Xian didn't know about. In any case, every time these soldiers returned, they would be half dead and looked especially miserable. Apart from that, these soldiers usually cultivated inhumanly. Under such intensity, their bodies naturally couldn't bear it. However, Zhanglan Academy was rich. Golden sore pills, various kinds of great supplement pills, and some elixirs that could strengthen the body, Zhanglan Academy had enough. Moreover, the lowest level of martial skills these soldiers cultivated was earth rank. Needless to say, the equipment they used was bright rank. However, Lu Jiuge didn't let them use the equipment of the Black Flame Cavalry. If they wanted to use it, they could, but they had to reach her custom-made standards. Only those who passed could use it. These soldiers looked at these bright rank equipment every day, but couldn't use it. How torturous was that? Cultivate. Cultivate with all their might. Most importantly, if they came last in the competition next month, they would be eliminated. Here, the food was the best, the usage was the best, and the cultivation resources were the best. No one wanted to leave. It could be said that almost everyone was cultivating with all their might. Under such circumstances, the growth of these soldiers was extremely terrifying. Other than the cultivation of the students and soldiers, after Jian Chu became the chief treasurer of Zhanglan Academy, the entire Zhanglan Academy underwent an earth-shattering change. Every day, many citizens of the imperial capital would enter Zhanglan Academy for a visit. Everyone had to pay a certain amount of gold coins. Actually, it wasn't a lot and everyone could afford it. However, once there were more people, it would be incredible. In just one day, Zhanglan Academy had earned a net profit of 20 million gold coins. And Jian Chu directly earned 2 million gold coins. 2 million was very little, but there were other projects, such as the auction of some abandoned land around Zhanglan Academy. Whoever could obtain a piece of land would be able to build a house there, and then they would be neighbors of Zhanglan Academy outside the city. Then, Jian Chu sold 5 pieces of land on the first day. They weren't big and each piece was only about 100 square meters. Yet, she sold each piece of land for 30 million gold coins. And the area around Zhanglan Academy was at least tens of thousands of mu. Other than that, there were all sorts of projects. In any case, on the first day, Jian Chu received a share of nearly 30 million gold coins. It was only a matter of time before this woman became the richest person in the country of Jiang. Other than that, she also recruited a large number of soldiers and recruited many people. Every day, she would go to the mountains to search for gold and silver mines. After nearly half a month of hard work, she really found a gold mine in the depths of a mountain range that was thousands of miles away from Zhanglan Academy. At this moment, the entire Zhanglan Academy was in an uproar. A gold mine was of great significance to Zhanglan Academy. This was because this gold mine could be mined for at least several 100 million gold coins. Of course, as the one who contributed the most, Jian Chu immediately received a reward of several tens of millions. Not only that, Yi Xian also very generously rewarded her with a clear tear spirit artifact, which made her extremely happy. Thus, she hurriedly sent a voice transmission to her younger brother, Jian Shaowang, to come as well. It should be said that she also called many people from the Jian family. With such a generous reward, Jian Chu worked even harder. She even established a small department, a department that belonged solely to her. She recruited nearly 100 people and these people were responsible for all sorts of things. Don't look down on these 100 people. These 100 people were responsible for all of Zhanglan Academy's businesses. Moreover, most of them contacted many aristocratic families in the country of Jiang and negotiated many cooperation conditions with them. For example, these aristocratic families would pay a certain amount of gold coins to allow their disciples to study at Zhanglan Academy. As long as they were outstanding enough, they could become official students of Tsanglan Academy. At first, Yi Xian felt that this would not be very effective because he felt that these aristocratic families were relatively poor. However, he was wrong. Many aristocratic families were not poor at all. Not only were they not poor, but they were also extremely rich. One quota for 30 million gold coins. Tsanglan Academy had reached an agreement with almost 20 aristocratic families. In other words, every year, they could obtain at least 600 million gold coins from these aristocratic families. Of course, it was completely free cooperation. These aristocratic families could stop cooperating with Tsanglan Academy at any time. However, Yi Xian realized that these aristocratic families did not have any intention of severing their cooperation with Tsanglan Academy. This was because after coming to Tsanglan Academy, their status would be different. Especially some outstanding aristocratic families' disciples, they would even become Tsanglan Academy students. Thus, even more aristocratic families came to cooperate with Tsanglan Academy. In a short period of 2 months, Tsanglan Academy had undergone earth-shattering changes. Tsanglan Academy's influence was growing, and so was its strength. However, Yi Xian was slightly worried. This was because Tsanglan Academy did not have enough high-end strength. He did not know how strong Lu Jioga, Mo Yuan, and Feng Lan were. Moreover, it was still a question whether these three would fight for Tsanglan Academy in the future. They were still not strong enough. On this day, the fifth-floor master of the drunken immortal abode came to Tsanglan Academy. In Yi Xian's room, the fifth-floor master smiled. "Young friend, I have a surprise for you this time." Yi Xian smiled. "Then I am looking forward to it." The fifth-floor master laughed heartily. He took out a box. Inside the box were 5 swords. They were all bright grade swords. At this moment, the fifth-floor master opened his right hand, and a black square box appeared in his palm. Yi Xian was stunned. "This is?" The fifth-floor master smiled. "A true grade sword box." A sword immortal from the divine central continent auctioned this item to the drunken immortal abode for 2.6 billion gold coins. No, it should be 25 million supreme grade spirit stones. Do you want it? Yi Xian, Genius 1 Second Remember website. Mobile version. Chapter 180. 25 million supreme grade spirit stones? Yi Xian was dumbfounded. After all, he had only obtained a little over 2 million supreme grade spirit stones after obtaining the treasuries of the Chu and Yu states. 25 million supreme grade spirit stones? He wouldn't get anything even if he sold himself. As if he knew what Yi Xian was thinking, the fifth-floor master shook his head with a smile. "Young friend, you might not know this, but truth-grade spirit weapons are extremely precious even in the divine central continent, let alone in our Azure province. Especially something used by a swordsman. It's even more precious." Yi Xian spread his hands and said helplessly, "Senior, I don't have that much money." The fifth-floor master said with a smile, "I know." "Then why did you bring it?" Yi Xian was speechless. Wasn't this making him jealous? The fifth-floor master smiled without saying anything. Yi Xian wasn't stupid. He immediately asked, "Is there any way?" The fifth-floor master nodded and said with a smile, "Young friend, if you can't pay the 25 million supreme-grade spirit stones in one go, you can pay in installments." Installments. Yi Xian was stunned. "You can do that?" The fifth-floor master said with a smile, "Others naturally can't, but you can. Of course, it depends on whether you need it or not. If you do, you have to pay at least 25 supreme-grade spirit stones to the drunken immortal in every month. Within 3 years, you have to pay everything back. This is the limit that the drunken immortal inn can do. 3 years. Yi Xian thought about it and then nodded. All right. The fifth-floor master placed the sword case in front of Yi Xian. This sword case is called Hidden Edge. With this sword case, your sword manipulation technique's power and speed can be increased by at least 30%. With your current strength, if you increase it by another 30%, no one under the 10,000 Dharma realm, except for those top-notch geniuses of the divine central continent, will be able to withstand a single strike from you. Below the Dharma realm, Yi Xian took the sword sheath. It was cold to the touch, and there were some dark golden patterns around the sword sheath. Yi Xian put his right hand together and gently gestured with his fingers. The 5 bright grade swords in the box at the sides suddenly flew up, and then, one by one, they flew into the sword case. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly pointed towards the door in the distance. Whoosh! 500 zhang away from the door, 5 swords were neatly stabbed into a large tree. Yi Xian's expression changed. Compared to before, this speed was indeed at least 30% faster. Now, if he were to fight against someone below the Dharma realm, unless it was a top genius, he could kill his opponent before they could even react. Yi Xian gently stroked the sword case in his hand. This thing was indeed a good thing. However, it was too expensive. Now, he was in debt of more than 20 million best-grade spirit stones. The 5th building master did not stay for long. After receiving 250,000 best-grade spirit stones from Yi Xian, he left. After the 5th building master left, Yi Xian carried the sword case and came to a bamboo forest at the back of the mountain. Standing in the middle of the bamboo forest, Yi Xian calmed his heart. Around him, there was only silence. After an unknown period of time, a gust of wind appeared in the forest. As the wind passed through the bamboo forest, countless bamboo leaves slowly fell from the sky. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly put his fingers together and gently flicked. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, 7 sword lights crisscrossed in the bamboo forest like butterflies. After a breath's time, the 7 swords suddenly returned to the front of Yi Xian. At this moment, each of these 7 swords pierced through a stack of bamboo leaves. In the air, only a bamboo leaf was left falling slowly. Yi Xian turned and left. In the bamboo forest, when the bamboo leaf was about to fall, a sword suddenly pierced through the bamboo leaf. In a flash, the sword disappeared. In the following period of time, in addition to frantically cultivating every day, Yi Xian also helped with the construction of Blue Waves Academy. The current Blue Waves Academy was undoubtedly the largest force in Jiang country. In terms of financial resources, it was also extremely rich. It had already far exceeded the annual tax revenue of Jiang country's imperial family. It could be said that the current Blue Waves Academy was developing at a terrifying speed. Just as Blue Waves Academy was developing rapidly, a major event suddenly occurred in the Azure province. In a desolate wasteland in the extreme south of the Azure province, one day, a wisp of sword light suddenly shot up from the ground and into the sky. In an instant, the entire sky within a few hundred li collapsed, but the wisp of sword light did not dissipate and remained in the sky. At this moment, the entire Azure province was shocked. Soon, the entire Azure province was spreading the news that a heaven-grade spiritual tool had appeared in the extreme south of the Azure province. Moreover, this spiritual tool was a sword. A heaven-grade sword. Above the true rank was the heavens. A true rank spiritual tool was already extremely rare in the Azure province, so not to mention Azure province, a heaven-grade spiritual tool was extremely rare even in the central divine prefecture. For a time, the entire Azure province was seething with excitement. Countless people headed to the extreme south of the Azure province, and it was even to the extent that people from Azure Wave province and the central divine prefecture had rushed over. Who wouldn't be tempted by a heaven-grade spiritual tool? All of them were gathered in Azure Wave Palace. Yi Xian took a sip of tea and said, "What do all of you think about that sword in the extreme south of the Azure province?" Mo Yinchi shook his head. "There's something fishy about it." Yi Xian asked, "What is it?" Mo Yinchi said, "I don't know." Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." Mo Yinchi was speechless. Lu Jioga spoke abruptly. It's nothing more than a scheme of Karaki Academy and the other two forces. All of them gazed at Lu Jioga. Lu Jioga chuckled. It's utterly impossible for a heaven-grade spiritual tool to appear in the Azure province. Even if it did, it wouldn't appear in such a manner. It's like they're afraid that everyone in the world doesn't know about Dao Yi. So, I infer that someone did this on purpose. All of them looked at Yi Xian. There was no doubt that this was targeted at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. They want to lure me over by myself? Lu Jioga nodded. That should be the case. This is probably a trap that they've set up for you. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why are they so sure that I'll go there? Lu Jioga smiled. If I'm not wrong, then that sword is probably real. They're betting that you won't be able to resist its temptation. Yi Xian smiled. Then they might have made the wrong bet. He was really tempted by a heaven-grade sword, but he wasn't stupid enough to go there despite knowing that it was a trap. Lu Jioga suddenly asked, why not? Everyone looked at Lu Jioga. Lu Jioga smiled. This is a trap, but it's also an opportunity. Moreover, if you don't accept their attack, they'll definitely make their next move. Now that you have a big family, there are too many people around you that you need to take care of. So, you can't hide. On the side, Jian Chuchu nodded in agreement. Miss Lu is right. If you don't accept their attack this time, they'll definitely make their next move. Right now, there's already a death grudge between you and them. They won't give up so easily. Jiang Jiu frowned. They already know Yi Xian's strength. So, the trap they've set up over there won't be simple. If he goes there rashly, Lu Jioga smiled. What's there to be afraid of? Everyone looked at Lu Jioga again. Although she wasn't old, she was always so calm and composed. Lu Jioga picked up the teacup in front of her and took a sip. Then, she smiled. They've set up a trap. Why can't we reverse it? Jiang Jiu asked, how do you reverse it? Lu Jioga put down the teacup and looked at Yi Xian. After Li Mu's death last time, they definitely won't dare to send people in the Dharma realm or the Dharma defending realm to deal with you. This time, the Heaven Sword appeared in the southernmost part of Green Province. If they lure you there can only be three possibilities. First, they want to kill you with a borrowed knife. For example, they want to borrow the genius of the divine central continent to kill you. Second, they want to set up a tactical deployment or boundary there to suppress you and greatly reduce your strength. Or, they want to make you unable to exert your strength. What about the third possibility? Jiang Jiu asked quickly. Lu Jioga said softly, they want to kill you with the help of that sword. Yi Xian frowned. Kill me with the help of that sword? Can that sword kill me? Jian Chuchu suddenly said, yes. Yi Xian turned to face Jian Chuchu. Jian Chuchu said softly, the heaven-grade sword has seized the fortune of heaven and earth. It has spiritual intelligence, which is the so-called sword spirit. If it pretends to recognize you as its master and then attacks you at a critical moment, you will definitely die. Heaven-grade sword. Yi Xian's expression darkened. Up until now, the elegant spirit sword in his body was unable to devour a heaven-grade sword. In other words, if a heaven-grade sword were to backfire, he would have no way of resisting it. However, there was no need for him to devour it. If he could obtain it, he could directly suppress it. A truth-grade sword was worth several billion. What about a heaven-grade sword? That was definitely an astronomical figure. He would be lying if he said he was not tempted. However, he also knew that since the other party dared to take out such a precious sword to set up a trap, this trap would definitely not be ordinary. At this moment, Lu Jioga said, although it is dangerous, it is also an opportunity. If you go, first, you may obtain a heaven-grade sword. Second, you can buy some time for Blue Waves Academy so that its students and Dao soldiers can have more time to train. At this point, she looked at Yi Xian. You have 12 metal men. Even if the Dharma realm attacks, with your current strength and the addition of these 12 metal men, you will be able to resist for some time. If the Dharma realm doesn't act, even the top 10 geniuses of the divine central continent will find it difficult to kill you. Jiang Jiao shook his head. It is still dangerous. Lu Jioga was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said with a smile, Miss Lu, I have a question. Lu Jioga looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said with a smile, why should I be led by the nose by them? Lu Jioga looked at Yi Xian, waiting for him to continue. Yi Xian smiled but did not speak. After a moment, Lu Jioga suddenly shook his head with a smile. I miscalculated. Indeed, we can do the opposite. What are you talking about? Mo Yinchi suddenly asked. Lu Jioga smiled. Read more books. Mo Yinchi's face darkened. Was he saying he was stupid? At the side, Bai Zai patted Mo Yinchi's shoulder. You are stupid and do not know yourself. Look at me, although I do not understand, I do not ask. If I do not ask, they will not know that I am stupid. Everyone, seeing their expressions, Bai Zai was stunned. Did I say something wrong? Everyone shook their heads. Mo Yinchi patted Bai Zai's shoulder with a pitiful expression. Bai Zai, after the sky turned dark, Yi Xian suddenly left Blue Waves Academy. And the moment Yi Xian left Blue Waves Academy, clouds moved in all directions. Great Cloud Realm, Kuraki Academy. Mu Qingxian stood in front of Haran Palace. He had been staring at the leaf sword above the horizontal board for a long time. After an unknown amount of time, a black-robed man suddenly appeared behind him. Dean, Yi Xian has already left Blue Waves Academy. Looking at the direction he is going, it should be the southernmost region of Qingzhou. However, for some reason, after he went to the southernmost region, he suddenly disappeared. Our people have lost track of him. Mu Qingxian slowly closed his eyes. After a moment, he said softly, this person is already the sword master. It is not strange for you to lose track of him. However, it does not matter. He will definitely arrive. He cannot refuse a heaven-rank sword. Inform Great Cloud Empire and Dark World that we can start. Yi Xian went to the southernmost region. No one knew who spread this news, but it spread throughout the entire Qingzhou in an instant. Everyone knew that Yi Xian was definitely going for that heaven-rank sword. For a moment, everyone in Qingzhou was discussing whether that sword would fall into the hands of Yi Xian. However, just when everyone thought that Yi Xian went to the southernmost region, a black-robed man carrying a sword case quietly entered Great Cloud Realm. God knows, Ghost knows. P.S. I discovered that there are not many updates recently, but no one scolded me. Other than love, I can't think of any other reason. It is undeniable that you all love me. Covet me. Want to possess me. Chapter 181. Great Cloud Empire. Great Cloud Empire occupied almost one-third of Qing Province's land area. It was a well-deserved super overlord in Qing Province. At its peak, its imperial power was above all the forces in Qing Province. Even Kuraki Academy in Dark World had to bow down to it. However, there was an old saying that went, prosperity leads to decline. After reaching the pinnacle of its power, this once supreme overlord of the Green Province began to decline. After a few muddle-headed emperors wantonly squandered and tossed about, this once supreme overlord was once faced with a split. Just when Great Cloud Empire was on the verge of falling apart, a king appeared in the empire. Lian Wanli. It was this King Yishan who turned the tide and saved the ancient empire that was about to fall apart. Although Great Cloud Empire wasn't at its peak, no one in Qing Province dared to belittle it. Great Cloud Empire's imperial palace, Supreme Harmony Hall. There were only 2 people in the hall. An 11 or 12-year-old boy in a dragon robe and crown was sitting on the dragon throne. The little boy sat upright with a solemn expression. Below him stood a woman. She wore a black, tight-fitting dress with a vivid and lifelike rainbow phoenix embroidered on it. The rainbow phoenix's wings were spread open and its head was raised up high. Its eyes were cold and indifferent, making it look very noble. The little boy looked at the woman. Sister, speaking of this, he seemed to have thought of something and hastily changed his words. Lian Qing, Jiang country is far away from our Great Cloud Empire and has no conflict of interest with it. Why should our Great Cloud Empire be its enemy? It's not in the interest of Great Cloud Empire. The woman walked to the little boy and pointed to the map. Who do you think is the biggest threat to Great Cloud Empire in Qing province? The little boy pondered for a moment and said, Jiang State? The woman shook her head. No. The little boy looked at the woman. Then who is it? The woman chuckled. Kuraki Academy, Dark World, and the ancient families in the country. The little boy frowned slightly. Then why do you want to attack Jiang State? The woman looked at the little boy without speaking. The little boy pondered for a long time. In the end, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly raised his head to look at the woman. You want to use the state of Jiang, no, you want to use that Yi Xian to weaken them. Hearing this, a hint of relief appeared in the woman's eyes. But our Great Cloud Empire has already lost hundreds of Black Flame cavalrymen, the little boy said in a deep voice. The girl sat beside the little boy, who hurriedly made way for her. The girl held his hand and said, the Black Flame cavalrymen are no longer loyal to the imperial family. They have been infiltrated by Kuraki Academy, the Dark World, and various aristocratic families. Their true loyalty isn't to the imperial family of Great Cloud Nation. Therefore, the imperial family of Great Cloud Nation doesn't suffer any loss. On the contrary, we can also remove an unstable factor. The little boy tilted his head and looked at the woman. But if this goes on, Great Cloud Empire will suffer heavy losses. The woman shook her head. These clans, sects, and powers, including Kuraki Academy, seem to be protecting Great Cloud Empire, but they're actually encroaching on Great Cloud Empire. Not only have they infiltrated the imperial court, the army, and even the imperial clan. If this goes on, Great Cloud Empire will be devoured by them in less than 10 years. As she spoke, she stretched out her left hand. These forces are like malignant tumors growing on our hands, and they're already connected to our flesh and blood. If we cut them off, we'll naturally feel pain. But if we don't, it won't just be pain, but death. The little boy fell silent for a long time. In the end, he picked up a memorial to the throne in front of him. There were 2 large words on the memorial, Yi Xian. The little boy flipped open the memorial to the throne. It was full of records about Yi Xian from the Azure City until now. There were a lot of detailed records about him. After a short while, the little boy sighed softly. Yi Xian is actually willing to live and die with Jiang country. Alas, how great would it be if Jiang country had such an outstanding talent? As he spoke, he turned to look at the woman beside him. Big sister, what do you think of him? The woman glanced at the memorial and smiled. What do you think? The little boy thought for a moment and said, I want to listen to you. The woman didn't speak. She just took the little boy's hand and walked out of the hall. She looked at the distant sky and smiled. If he's a friend, he's trustworthy and worthy of being entrusted. If he's an enemy, he should be killed at all costs. The little boy looked up at the woman. Big sister, do you want to be an enemy or a friend? The woman rubbed the little boy's head gently. You're the emperor of Great Cloud Empire. You decide. The little boy thought for a moment and said, I want to be friends with him. The woman smiled. Why? The little boy spoke in a deep voice, my Great Cloud Empire has no enmity with him, nor do we have any conflict of interest with him. It's not in the interest of my Great Cloud Empire to be enemies with him, but it's in the interest of my Great Cloud Empire to have a trustworthy friend with him. The woman looked at the little boy with a trace of gratification in her eyes. She turned to look at the little boy. Pass down my order. Summon all the major families to the extreme south to besiege and kill Yi Xian. Yes. Someone answered in the dark. big sister?" The little boy looked at the woman in astonishment. The woman smiled. "We're helping him." With that, she looked up at the distant sky and gently stroked her hair behind her ears. "Some people are going to be unlucky." Night fell. Countless people suddenly left the imperial capital of Great Cloud Empire. They were all heading to the same place, the extreme south. And their target was Yi Xian. Kuraki Academy, Dark World, and Great Cloud Empire took the lead. These families naturally didn't dare to refuse. If they dared to refuse, then they really didn't want to stay in Great Cloud Empire anymore. It should be known that these three forces could be said to be the strongest in the entire Azure province. In the extreme south, a wisp of swordlight was still suspended in the air and didn't dissipate for a long time. Somewhere in the dark, Mu Qingxian and the Lord of the Dark World stood side by side. Their gazes fell below the wisp of swordlight. Beside Mu Qingxian, the Lord of the Dark World suddenly said, "Are you confident this time?" Mu Qingxian said faintly, "The spirit sealing formation underground can restrict his profound qi, making him unable to use the sword. Although his physical body is strong enough, without the sword, his strength will be reduced by at least 50%. At that time, it won't be difficult to kill him. Of course, even if we fail, it's fine. That sword will give him a big surprise." With that, he looked at the Lord of the Dark World. "Where is he now?" The Lord of the Dark World said, "My people have already found his traces. He's not far from here and will arrive soon." Mu Qingxian nodded. He clenched his fists and a trace of darkness flashed in his eyes. "Let the people underground prepare. Once he enters the surface, activate the formation immediately. Don't give him any chance." The Lord of the Dark World suddenly said, "I don't understand. Why is Lien Wanli supporting us this time? You should know that Great Cloud Empire and Yi Xian don't have any grudges. Could it be that he really wants to unify Azure Province?" Mu Qingxian sneered. "This person is extremely ambitious. It's normal for him to have such thoughts." The Lord of the Dark World nodded slightly. "If he wants to unify Azure Province, without the support of Kuraki Academy, it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens." Kuraki Academy was spread throughout the various countries of Azure Province. If Great Cloud Empire had the support of Kuraki Academy, unifying Azure Province would be much easier. It should be known that Kuraki Academy's influence in these countries was extremely great. Underground. At that moment, there were already more than 100 people gathered underground. Among these people, the weakest was in the Nether Passage realm. Elites. They were all elites of Kuraki Academy and Dark World. Among them, there were more than 20 people who came from the Divine Central Continent and were all at the peak of the Divine Unity realm. Of course, this time, their true trump card was the formation underground. Forcefully suppress them. As long as Yi Xian went underground and the formation was activated, Yi Xian would be suppressed instantly. He would not be able to use his celestial qi. Not only would he not be able to use his celestial qi, but he would also not be able to use any secret techniques or magic powers. At that time, if they attacked together, Yi Xian would definitely die. In order to set up this formation, Kuraki Academy and Dark World had spent at least 500 million gold coins and tens of millions of supreme-grade spirit stones. As for that heaven-grade sword, it was borrowed from the Divine Central Continent. This time, they had spent a lot. And all of this was to kill Yi Xian. Yi Xian's growth was too fast, and Blue Waves Academy was also developing rapidly. This time, they were no longer afraid, but fearful. If this continued, Yi Xian and Blue Waves Academy would really change the structure of Azure Province, and even threaten their transcendent status. Moreover, they were already mortal enemies with Yi Xian. There was no possibility of reconciliation. Dark World and Kuraki Academy had no way out. Time passed bit by bit. About 2 hours later, a man in black with a sword sheath on his back suddenly stepped into the wasteland. The man in black was holding his head, and his face was covered by a black mask, so his appearance couldn't be seen. And the direction he was walking in was the location of that sword light. Seeing this man in black, Mu Qingshuan's eyes narrowed. He's here. The mistress of the dark world nodded slightly and quietly retreated. Underground, more than 100 people were accumulating power, ready to attack at any time. All of them had extremely solemn expressions in their eyes as well. Because the person they were dealing with this time was the youngest sword master in the Pine Prefecture. Moreover, Yi Xian still had the 12 golden men. But fortunately, they were already prepared. As long as Yi Xian came down, he would definitely die. On the ground, the man in black was getting closer and closer to that sword light. Just as he was about to enter the formation, he suddenly stopped. Mu Qingxian was stunned. Not going? The man in black sat cross-legged on the ground and then began to meditate. Mu Qingxian frowned. What the hell? Time passed bit by bit, and the man in black didn't move to the limit. About 2 hours later, the mistress of the dark world suddenly appeared beside Mu Qingxian and said solemnly, "The situation isn't right." Mu Qingxian stared fixedly at the man in black below. "Find someone to test it out." The mistress of the dark world nodded. Right at this moment, the man in black suddenly took off his mask. When they saw the man's true appearance, Mu Qingxian and the mistress of the dark world's faces instantly turned gloomy. The man in black wasn't Yi Xian, but Mo Yinqi. Mo Yinqi raised his head and looked somewhere in the sky, and he grinned. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" Mu Qingshuan's face was ugly to the extreme. At this moment, the space in front of him trembled slightly. In the next moment, Mu Qingshuan's face changed drastically, and he roared, "Immediately withdraw the formation, and everyone hurry back to Karaki College." With that, he and the mistress of the dark world vanished. They were very fast, and they vanished into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Great Cloud Realm, Karaki College. A man in black with a sword sheath on his back was confronting a group of Karaki College students. The man in black didn't make a move, and those Karaki College students didn't dare to make a move either, because the person in front of them was Yi Xian. Mu Qingxian and the mistress of the dark world were extremely fast, and the two of them used less than half an hour to rush back to Karaki College. Seeing that Karaki College was safe and sound, Mu Qingxian immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He and the mistress of the dark world landed in front of the man in black. Mu Qingxian stared fixedly at the man in black. "Yi Xian, you," at this moment, the man in black suddenly untied his black robe and revealed his true face. The moment he saw the man in black's true face, Mu Qingxian felt as if he was struck by lightning, and his face instantly turned pale. Chapter 182. The reason why Mu Qingxian lost his composure was because the black-robed man before him wasn't Yi Xian. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. It wasn't Yi Xian? Then what about the real Yi Xian? As if he had thought of something, Mu Qingshuan's expression suddenly changed, and he turned his head to look at the sky. "Heaven-grade sword. Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, he'd vanished. The students of Karaki College exchanged glances with each other, and they were dumbfounded. Not far away, under the black-robed man's black robe was a beautiful face. Jian Chu-Chu. Jian Chu-Chu raised her head to look at the sky, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "I should have gotten it." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. 30 minutes ago in the extreme south. After Mu Qingxian and the mistress of the dark world left, the people underground dispersed the grand formation and came out. Everyone was preparing to rush back to Karaki College when a man suddenly looked up. Not far away, a cold light appeared. The man's expression changed drastically, and he was about to make a move, but it was too late. A sword directly pierced through his forehead. The man's body instantly stiffened, and blood splattered from his forehead and the back of his head. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they looked towards the distance. In the distance, a man was dashing over. When they saw this man, everyone was instantly horrified. Because this person was Yi Xian. Wasn't Yi Xian at Karaki College? Everyone was stunned. At this moment, Yi Xian's speed increased explosively, and at the same time, the 7 swords flew into the crowd like 7 bolts of lightning. Chi! 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 In an instant, the heads of the 7 people flew off at the same time. Instant kill. As for Yi Xian, he charged into the crowd as well. After he charged into the crowd, those people were about to make a move, but at this moment, the 5 golden men suddenly appeared. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 people were instantly killed by the 5 golden men before they could even react. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they retreated rapidly. At this moment, under the attack of Yi Xian and the 5 golden men, they had completely lost the courage to resist. Because no matter if it was Yi Xian or the 5 golden men, they were instantly killed. Their strength was suppressed without any suspense. By retreating, they had completely destroyed their only hope of survival. If a group of people joined forces, they would still have a fighting chance. In fact, it should be said that they definitely had a fighting chance. After all, these 5 golden men could only exist for 15 minutes. As long as they could drag it out for another 15 minutes, the 5 golden men would disappear and they would be able to stop Yi Xian. In a one-on-one fight, no one could stop Yi Xian, but in a one-on-one fight, they could still beat him. At this moment, Yi Xian had not reached the level where he could fight 100 people alone. Unfortunately, at this moment, they were all scared out of their wits by Yi Xian and the 5 golden men. They had no intention of fighting at all. Run! Everyone began to frantically flee in all directions, and Yi Xian's flying sword played a huge role at this moment. The flying swords shuttled back and forth ceaselessly in the field, and every flying sword that flew past would bring along a bloody head. In less than 15 minutes, Yi Xian and the 5 golden men had already killed over 70 people in the field, and over 30 people had already fled. These 30 people were all extremely powerful. They fled in different directions, and Yi Xian and the 5 golden men could do nothing to them. Especially the 5 golden men, who existed for an extremely short period of time. Therefore, Yi Xian did not chase after them. After the 30 people escaped, Yi Xian led the 5 golden men directly underground. In a deep pit, there was a circular altar with a sword in a scabbard floating on it. Around the altar, there were 4 bolts of lightning that locked the sword tightly like iron chains. Heaven-grade sword. Yi Xian hurried over. Just as he got close, a sharp sword aura suddenly shot towards him. Yi Xian frowned and stabbed with his sword. At the tip of the sword, a cold gleam appeared. Bang! The sword aura shattered with a loud bang, and Yi Xian himself took over 10 steps back. On the altar, the sword in the scabbard suddenly trembled violently. Yi Xian did not dare to waste any more time. He immediately commanded the 5 golden men to charge over. Another wisp of sword energy shot out, but it was forcefully blocked by the 5 golden men. Soon, the 5 golden men rushed to the altar and broke the 4 bolts of lightning that locked the sword. They broke it easily. Sensing this scene, Yi Xian did not feel happy at all. Instead, his face darkened. As soon as the 4 bolts of lightning were broken, the sword in the middle of the altar was about to escape, but it was held tightly by the hands of one of the golden men. At this time, Yi Xian walked up the altar. Yi Xian did not touch the sword. Instead, he had the 5 golden men bring the sword to the 2nd level of the World Prison Pagoda. After entering the World Prison Pagoda, the sword that was originally trembling violently suddenly calmed down. However, it soon began to tremble slightly again. It was afraid. Yi Xian could clearly feel that the sword was afraid. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian closed the door of the 1st level and left the underground. Inside the World Prison Pagoda, after the Golden Man's spiritual qi was exhausted, he released his hands, and the sword regained its freedom. In an instant, it suddenly flew around the 1st floor and released rays of sword light to attack the walls of the pagoda. Clearly, it wanted to get out. Unfortunately, the world prison pagoda was sturdy enough. No matter how it slashed, the world prison pagoda did not suffer any damage. However, the sword did not stop. Instead, it became even fiercer. In an instant, the entire first level was filled with sword light and sword cries. It was very noisy. At this time, at the top of the world prison pagoda, a sword in the middle suddenly trembled. In an instant, the entire first level of the world prison pagoda became quiet. In the corner, a sword was trembling. Outside, after Yi Xian came out of the ground, Mo Yunqi came in front of him and grinned. The battlefield has been cleaned up. We have obtained more than 40 supreme-grade spirit weapons, 300 million gold coins, 300,000 supreme-grade spirit stones, and other miscellaneous items. As he said that, he sized up Yi Xian. Got it? Yi Xian nodded. Let's go. After that, the two of them quickly disappeared. Not long after Yi Xian and Mo Yunqi left, Mu Qingxian and the mistress of the dark world appeared above them. When they saw the corpses all over the place, their faces instantly became extremely ugly. Soon, Mu Qingxian came to the underground. At this moment, the altar was already empty. Completely empty. Mu Qingxuan's face was already livid. He clenched his fists and his entire body was trembling slightly. He did not have the slightest bit of calmness and elegance from before. It was gone. A heaven-grade sword was gone. Mu Qingxuan's heart was bleeding. This sword was borrowed from the Divine Central Continent by Kuraki Academy. In other words, this sword did not belong to Kuraki Academy. It was lost. Even if they sold Kuraki Academy, they would not be able to afford it. At this moment, the mistress of the dark world suddenly said, "Does that sword have other mysteries?" Hearing this, Mu Qingxian suddenly woke up. He slowly closed his eyes and formed a strange hand seal with both hands. Soon, the space in front of him began to tremble slightly. After an unknown amount of time, Mu Qingxian frowned deeply and his face was extremely gloomy. "I can't feel it." The mistress of the dark world said in a low voice, "He should not have officially subdued that sword. Once he does, he will definitely use it. At that time, activate the sword technique and the sword will counterattack. You will definitely be able to kill him." Mu Qingxian shook his head. There was a trace of complexity in his eyes. "We have thought too simply of this person." As he spoke, he returned underground and glanced at the corpses that covered the ground. A long time later, he said in a soft voice, "This person should have seen through the trap that we set up, and that's why he acted in such a way. Without the suppression of the Grand Formation, he is already invincible in Qingzhou under 10,000 Laws realm." Invincible. The mistress of the dark world remained silent. Because that was the truth. Mu Qingxian once again glanced at the corpses on the ground and his expression was somewhat dejected. This person has a sword immortal behind him. A sword immortal is enough to make both our forces not dare to use the 10,000 Laws realm and those above the 10,000 Laws realm. Besides the 10,000 Laws realm, Yi Xian's strength is already invincible in Qingzhou. Now, his Blue Waves Academy is rapidly developing. With this momentum, in at most a year, the situation of Qingzhou will change. At that time, I'm afraid there will be no Dark World or Kuraki Academy in Qingzhou. Thorough. In fact, he had already seen through everything. And because he saw through everything, the previous plan was actually his last gamble. Unfortunately, it was a complete defeat. Yi Xian didn't fall for it. On the contrary, Kuraki Academy and Dark World suffered a double loss. At this time, the mistress of the Dark World suddenly said, "Is there any reply from your headquarters?" Mu Qingxian shook his head. "I don't know what they plan to do. However, reconciliation is absolutely impossible. Even if Yi Xian takes the initiative to ask for peace, they absolutely won't dare to. If Yi Xian doesn't die, sooner or later he will enter the Central Divine Prefecture. At that time, the headquarters will definitely be fatally threatened. Now, they are also in a difficult position. However, let's see how they make their move. The mistress of the dark world nodded. My dark world too. Now, both of us have already changed from taking the initiative to being passive. If they don't make their move, both our forces will have no choice but to withdraw from Qingzhou. At that time, the development speed of Yi Xian and Blue Wave's academy will be even more terrifying. Mu Qingxian nodded. Wait for the next part. As for that sword, I hope everything goes smoothly. Even if we can't kill him, we have to injure him severely. The mistress of the dark world also nodded slightly. If we can injure him severely, at that time, it will be relatively easier to deal with him. However, this person is courageous and astute, and he himself is incomparably mysterious. That sword Immortal is also the same. Until now, we still can't find any information about her. Speaking up to here, he sighed softly. Actually, at that time, Dark World and Yi Xian didn't have any conflict. Unfortunately, Dark World brought this upon themselves and forcefully interfered, making him and Yi Xian become mortal enemies. It would be a lie to say that he didn't regret it. Unfortunately, now, Dark World was the same as Kuraki Academy, there was no way out. After a quarter of an hour, the two left. On the other side, Yi Xian suddenly stopped riding the black wolf. He faced Mo Yinchi beside him. Bring the spoils of war back to the imperial capital and hand them all to Imperial Tutor Lu. She will distribute them. What about you? Mo Yinchi asked. Yi Xian grinned, let's go to the Great Cloud Realm. Mo Yinchi's expression changed slightly. Bandit Yi, don't act recklessly. The current you should properly develop your own strength. Yi Xian shook his head. All along, they have been targeting me time and time again. Why do they dare to target me? Because they think that I am easy to bully. They think that I will endure it. But this time, I don't want to endure it. Because if I endure for too long, I am afraid that my sword will rust. As he spoke, he grinned. This time, I am going to Great Cloud Realm, not for wealth, not for opportunities, not for cultivation. I am only going to kill. After speaking, he rode the black wolf and charged out. Very quickly, he disappeared from Mo Yinchi's sight. P.S. Recently, a lot of people have come to the circle to diss me. Everyone, don't care about them. They are just jealous of my handsomeness. As the saying goes, those who are not envied by others are ugly. Ask yourself honestly. My writing might not be particularly good, but I am definitely the most handsome in Vertical Book City. There is a poem that says, the first time we met in Vertical Book City, the moment we saw Blue Wan, we were wrong for life. Most men in the world are fickle, only Blue Wan has high moral integrity. Li Bai. Genius 1 second remember website address. Mobile version website. Chapter 183. Great Cloud Realm. In fact, Yi Xian had wanted to go to Great Cloud Realm a long time ago because he never liked to be passive. All this time, it had always been Kuraki Academy and Dark World attacking, while he could only passively receive their attacks. He didn't want to continue being passive. Previously, he was passive because he was worried about Sanglan Academy. But now, Sanglan Academy was already on the right track. Even if he wasn't around, Sanglan Academy would still be able to operate well. It was time to take the initiative. Just as he said, this trip to the Great Cloud Realm was not for cultivation, not for fortuitous encounters, not for wealth, but to kill. Murder. This time, he was going to kill. Watching Yi Xian disappear into the distance, Mo Yinchi was stunned for a long time. Finally, he grinned and said, wait for us. With that, he turned around and left. Sanglan Academy. The current Azure Billow Academy had undoubtedly become the strongest power in the state of Jiang. Of course, this was inseparable from the help of the Kuraki Academy and the Immortal Intoxication Pavilion. If it wasn't for the assistance of these two forces, it would be impossible for Sanglan Academy to develop so quickly. The reason why the state of Jiang and the drunken Immortal Inn were helping them was obviously because of Yi Xian. It should be said that the interests of the three parties were now tied together. Especially Jianghua, the reason why they helped Sanglan Academy so much was because Jiang Jiu was at Sanglan Academy. Sanglan Academy's strongest Dao soldier was led by Jiang Jiu. Moreover, the relationship between Jiang Jiu and Yi Xian was particularly unusual. Yi Xian was strong, Sanglan Academy was strong, it could be said that Jiang country was strong. The king of Jiang country and Jiang Yuetian were very clear about this. In the future, Jiang Jiu and Yi Xian's goal was the Sea of Stars, not this mere Jiang country. As for Drunken Immortal Tavern, their target was not Azure Province, but the Central Divine Prefecture. They were waiting for Yi Xian to go to the Central Divine Prefecture. It was only a matter of time before Yi Xian went to the Central Divine Prefecture. The greater Yi Xian's achievements in the future, the greater the rewards that the intoxicated Immortal House could obtain. The Drunken Immortal Restaurant was doing business, and they were very clear about one thing. Most of the time, investors could be the most profitable. Kanglan Palace. Mo Yunqi, Jian Chuchu, Mo Yuan and the others were all present. Now, the one in charge of Azure Billow Academy was Lu Jioga. Lu Jioga glanced at everyone, what do you think about Dean Yi going to Great Cloud Realm? Mo Yuan shook his head. How impulsive. Feng Lan also nodded, the most important thing right now is to develop Sanglan Academy and raise his personal strength. If he goes to Great Cloud Realm now, I'm afraid there will be trouble again. Trouble? Lu Jioga laughed. If he doesn't go, there won't be any trouble? Everyone looked at Lu Jioga. Lu Jioga took a sip of tea, and then he chuckled, right now, we are in a life and death situation with Kuraki Academy and the Dark World. If Headmaster Ji hadn't perished, I believe there might be room for negotiation. However, Headmaster Ji has fallen. Given our headmaster's personality, there is absolutely no possibility of reconciliation. Both Kuraki Academy and Dark World are aware of this as well. Hence, there is no possibility of reconciliation between the two sides. With that, she looked at Mo Yuan and Feng Lan. The two of you must not have any thoughts of reconciliation. Otherwise, there will be no future for the Confucian Dao and him. Mo Yuan laughed bitterly, don't worry. My Confucian Dao will not be as pedantic as before. We have to reason, but we still have to fight. Lu Jioga nodded. She glanced at Mo Yunqi and the others. The few of you, besides Jian Chuchu, are not strong enough. There is already a huge gap between you and him. If you can't make up for this gap, the few of you will only get further and further away from him. Do you understand? Mo Yunqi laughed bitterly, this fellow's strength is growing so quickly. We are also helpless. Lu Jioga shook her head. From today onwards, besides Ji and Chu, the two of you will join my Sanglan Academy's Dao soldiers and cultivate together with them. Mo Yunqi hesitated for a moment and said, there is no need for the two of us, right? Lu Jioga said indifferently, you think you are very strong? Mo Yunqi chuckled. Although we are not comparable to Bandit Yi, in this Sanglan Academy, besides Bandit Yi, Bai Zhe and I are considered the strongest, right? Lu Jioga smiled faintly. She turned and looked outside the hall. Dazhu. As soon as she finished speaking, a burly middle-aged man walked into the hall. The middle-aged man looked at Mo Yunqi. Mo Yunqi stood up and walked to the side with Dazhu. In the next moment, Mo Yunqi suddenly vanished, and numerous afterimages appeared. His speed was extremely fast. But, bang! Along with a muffled sound, Mo Yunqi returned to his original position. In front of him, the man called Dazhu didn't move at all. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe's expressions became serious when they saw this scene. Dazhu bowed slightly to Lu Jioga and Jiang Jiu, and then he turned and left. The hall suddenly went silent. Lu Jioga glanced at Mo Yunqi. After the meeting, I will take them to a secret place to train. You and Bai Zhe can come or not. Besides that, there is one more thing. Our Tsanglan Academy is about to advance into the Great Cloud Realm. Zheng Jiu looked at Lu Jioga. You want to go to the Great Cloud Realm to develop? Lu Jioga shook her head and smiled. The Great Cloud Realm isn't our goal. The reason we want to advance into the Great Cloud Realm is because after our dean enters the Great Cloud Realm, the Great Cloud Realm will change. We have to be ready to go and support him at any time. Change. Hearing this, the hall quieted down. If Yi Xian went to the Great Cloud Realm, would something good happen? Obviously not. 2 hours later, Lu Jioga and Tsanglan Academy's Dao soldiers left Tsanglan Academy. Bai Zhe and Mo Yinshi were also among them. On a cloud ship, in a private room, inside the prison pagoda. Yi Xian stood in the corner of the first floor, and in front of him was a sword with a scabbard. At this moment, the sword was still trembling. Obviously, it was very afraid. Heaven-class sword. Yi Xian's expression was extremely serious. Not because of the sword, but because of the pagoda. Ever since he obtained this pagoda, it had been constantly refreshing his understanding. What kind of pagoda was this? Who exactly was that sword immortal sister? Whose swords were those at the top of the pagoda? He had asked himself this question countless times. Unfortunately, he never got an answer. Collecting his thoughts, Yi Xian faced the heaven-class sword in front of him. After a moment, he turned and left. He did not choose to devour it. Because his current ability was not enough to devour a heaven-class sword. If he devoured it now, he would most likely be devoured by the sword. No, he would definitely be devoured by the sword, and with his current strength, he would definitely not be able to withstand it. Moreover, the Spirit Elegance sword was only true low grade. If he devoured this heaven-class sword, the Spirit Elegance sword might cease to exist. He could not devour it. After Yi Xian left the prison pagoda, he came to the deck of the cloud ship. There were still some people on the deck. This time, he did not reveal his identity on the cloud ship because he wanted to give Tsangmu Academy a surprise. Yi Xian came to the bow of the ship. From this position, he could feel the vast horizon, the majestic mountains, and the boundless land. Sensing all of this, Yi Xian's heart became even more calm. Swordsmen cultivated the sword, but also the heart. It should be said that all martial artists cultivated the heart. Heart, there was good heart and evil heart. Heart. Good and evil at the same time. What was good? What was evil? Yi Xian did not know, nor did he want to know. He only knew that he had to be good to those who were good to him. As for those who were bad to him, he naturally had to return the favor. Brother, please make way. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's ears. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and turned around. A woman was standing in front of him. She was wearing an ink-colored long dress. Her hair fell over her shoulders, and her figure was lithe and graceful. She was very elegant and calm. Seeing Yi Xian's appearance, the woman was slightly stunned and exclaimed, "What happened to your eyes?" As she said this, she realized that she had been a bit presumptuous and smiled apologetically, "Sorry." Yi Xian smiled slightly, "It's fine." After saying this, he retreated to the side because he had been blocking the road. The woman nodded slightly, "Thank you." After saying this, she also came to the bow of the cloud ship. The woman looked down at the vast land below and smiled, "It's a great land." After saying this, she looked at Yi Xian who was not far away, "Friend, are you going to the Great Cloud Realm?" Yi Xian smiled, "The purpose of this cloud ship should be the Great Cloud Realm, isn't it?" The woman smiled slightly, "The Great Cloud Realm is the most prosperous place in my Qingzhou. It's naturally good to go and experience it." Yi Xian smiled and did not speak. At this moment, there were sounds of discussion behind her. The woman turned her head and looked. Not far away, some people were discussing spiritedly. It was very lively. These people were all discussing Yi Xian. Currently, in this Qingzhou, Yi Xian was undoubtedly the most popular one. Such a young sword master had never appeared in Qingzhou for hundreds of years. The woman shook her head and smiled. She turned around and placed her hands on the pole, looking down at the vast land below. A light breeze blew her hair, quiet and elegant. Yi Xian stood at the top of the cloud ship. He liked this kind of tranquility because it allowed him to calm down. At this moment, 3 cloud ships suddenly appeared in the distant sky. The cloud ships were extremely fast and headed straight for their cloud ship. Everyone on the cloud ship also noticed it and looked at the 3 cloud ships. An old man suddenly appeared on the deck of the cloud ship. This person was the steward of this cloud ship. When the old man saw the 3 cloud ships, his expression changed drastically. Blood Wolf mercenary group. Everyone on guard. As the voice fell, some cloud ship guards appeared in the surroundings. When these guards saw the 3 cloud ships, their expressions instantly turned solemn. On the deck of the cloud ship, everyone was a little confused. At this moment, the 3 cloud ships had already approached and surrounded the cloud ship that Yi Xian was on from 3 directions. Opposite Yi Xian, a man walked to the bow of the cloud ship. The man looked down at Yi Xian and the others and grinned. This time, we should have a good harvest. Yi Xian was stunned. Was this robbery? At this moment, the man opposite him suddenly jumped onto their cloud ship. The man carried a machete and walked in front of Yi Xian. To be precise, he walked to the woman beside him and knelt on one knee in front of the woman, big sister. The woman smiled slightly. Kill all the men, leave the women behind. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. My dad is seriously ill. He has uremia and diabetes. His leg is ulcerated and needs to be amputated. He is now in the operating room and will be operated on immediately. I came at 7 and was immediately busy until now to update my phone. May there be no illnesses in the world. One more chapter. I'm really sorry that I haven't been able to update 3 chapters recently. After this matter is over, I will resume updating. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Please remember this site's address in a second. Mobile version. Chapter 184. Kill all the men, keep the women. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He didn't expect this to come from the woman next to him. He did not know this woman, but from what he saw, she was very kind and polite. Moreover, she spoke very elegantly. She definitely did not look like a bad person. But at this moment, Yi Xian did not expect the woman in front of him to say, "Kill all the men and leave all the women alive." The contrast was too big. Yi Xian looked at the woman. Why? Why? The woman was slightly startled. She turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. What do you mean why? Yi Xian said, "You don't look like a bad person." Bad person? The woman was stunned for a moment. Then, she laughed heartily. She laughed heartily. A moment later, she looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You don't think I'm a bad person? Yi Xian nodded. The woman shook her head. A person who looks especially good might not be a good person, and a person who looks especially bad might not be a bad person. Do you understand? If you don't, it's fine. There will be opportunities in your next life. Yi Xian was silent for a moment. Then, he nodded. I've learned something. The woman glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. You're quite a calm person. You're quite extraordinary to be able to remain so calm at this point. But, you still have to die. Yi Xian smiled. Why don't you bring me back to be your wife? Oh, no, to be my big brother. The man beside Yi Xian laughed angrily. Just because you're blind? Be our big brother? You. The man's voice stopped abruptly. A sword was pointed at his forehead. The cloud ship suddenly fell silent. The woman in front of Yi Xian narrowed her eyes. There was a cold glint in her eyes. Yi Xian withdrew his sword. The man was enraged. How dare you? At this moment, Yi Xian swung his sword. The man had only said 3 words when his head was sent flying. Everyone, the woman glared at Yi Xian. Who the hell are you? At this moment, she was also extremely shocked. Because the person Yi Xian killed was at the divine combination realm. Even a god combination stage expert couldn't even retaliate against this sword. Yi Xian walked in front of the woman. He was very close to the woman, and the woman gave off a faint fragrance. Yi Xian shook his head. You're quite pretty. Why would you want to be a thief? The woman said indifferently, I was forced by life. Yi Xian nodded. I'll give you a chance to live. Do you want it? The corner of the woman's mouth rose. I have 21 God Fusion Realm experts here and you want to give me a chance to live? Are you sure? Yi Xian pointed to the right with his right hand. On a cloud ship on the right, a man's head flew off. Everyone on the cloud vessel was completely stunned when they witnessed this scene. The woman in front of Yi Xian was also shocked. Is this the 10,000 Laws realm? On the other side, the manager of the cloud vessel seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed drastically, but soon, it turned into ecstasy and excitement. Yi Xian opened his right hand and a sword fell into his hand. He wiped off the blood on the sword and touched the woman's cheek. A bloody mark appeared on the woman's face. Yi Xian said with a smile, one last chance. Surrender or die. The woman glared at Yi Xian. Who are you? Who are you? Yi Xian said, you still haven't answered my question. The woman stared at Yi Xian for a long time. After a long time, she said, you're Yi Xian. Yi Xian. The moment she said this, the entire cloud vessel went into an uproar. Who in Qingzhou hadn't heard of Yi Xian? On the cloud ship, everyone's gazes fell on Yi Xian in an instant. Some were curious, some were excited, and some were fiery. Qingzhou's youngest sword master. The manager of the cloud vessel hurriedly walked up to Yi Xian and bowed deeply. Greetings, State Scholar Yi. I didn't know State Scholar Yi was on the cloud vessel. Please forgive me. Yi Xian smiled. It's none of your business. The manager bowed deeply again and retreated to the side. Yi Xian looked at the woman. A chance to live? Do you want it? The woman grinned. You're underestimating me. As she spoke, she suddenly floated backwards. Her speed was extremely fast, faster than lightning. At the same time, a silver ray shot towards Yi Xian's forehead. However, before this silver ray could get close to Yi Xian, it was shattered by his goodwill sword intent. At the same time, a sword ray appeared 300 meters away. 300 meters away, the woman's body suddenly stiffened in the air. There was a sword in her forehead. The woman looked at the distant sky in a daze. So fast, on the cloud vessel, Yi Xian opened his right hand. The sword in the woman's forehead suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in Yi Xian's palm. However, it quickly flew out again. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with flying swords. 10 breaths later, no one from the Blood Wolf mercenary group was still alive. Yi Xian looked through the spoils of war. There were 300 million gold coins and 500,000 top-grade spirit stones. He estimated that he now had nearly 1 billion gold coins in cash, and about 2 million top-grade spirit stones, excluding the ones used to activate the Golden Man. As for the top-grade spirit weapons and bright-grade equipment, he left them in Sung Lan Academy. Sung Lan Academy needed them more than him. He also believed that Sung Lan Academy would give him a big surprise in the future. He promised Old Ji that he would make Sung Lan Academy the best academy in Azure Firmament World. He would definitely do it. At this moment, the manager suddenly said, State Scholar Yi, what are your plans for the 3 cloud vessels? 3 cloud vessels. Yi Xian was slightly stunned and then asked, "How much is one ship worth?" The manager thought for a moment and then said, "About 100 million for one ship." If State Scholar Yi wants to sell it, my drunken immortal inn can buy it. 300 million. Yi Xian nodded, "Sure. Convert the gold coins into top-grade spirit stones and then give it to State Zhang's 5th building master. Tell him that I am repaying the debt." The manager bowed slightly, "Okay." After that, he was about to say something, but at this moment, a cloud vessel guard suddenly came. "Steward Wu, we have entered the Great Cloud Territory." Great Cloud Territory. Yi Xian turned around and looked into the distance. Although he had no eyes, he could still feel everything. At the end of the distance, there was the outline of a city. It was very big, several times bigger than all the cities he had seen in Azure Province. "Is this the imperial capital of Great Cloud Empire?" Yi Xian asked. The manager shook his head and said with a smile, "State Scholar Yi, this is not the imperial capital of Great Cloud Empire, but a small city on the border of Great Cloud Empire called Nanqing City with a population of about 5 million. A small city. Yi Xian was a little shocked because even State Zhang's imperial capital wasn't so big. It seemed that he had greatly underestimated Great Cloud Empire. Not only Great Cloud Empire. He was afraid that Dark World and Karaki Academy weren't so simple. But this was also normal. These forces had been passed down for so many years, so they definitely wouldn't be simple. Steward Wu said again, "State Scholar Yi, the cloud vessel will stop in the city for a while to refuel. Although Nanming City is the capital of Great Cloud Empire, it is too far from the imperial capital. In addition, Great Cloud Empire has been corrupted in recent years. Therefore, many places are quite chaotic, especially this small city in a remote place. State Scholar Yi, please be careful if you want to disembark." Yi Xian nodded, "Okay." As though he recalled something, he asked again, "Is there Karaki Academy in the city?" Steward Wu nodded, "Yes. Karaki Academy, Dark World, and various aristocratic families have infiltrated various cities in Great Cloud Empire. Some cities even belong to Karaki Academy and these aristocratic families. If it wasn't for King Kaoshan, I'm afraid the entire Great Cloud Empire would have been completely divided by these forces." King Kaoshan. Yi Xian made a mental note of these 3 words and nodded slightly. "Got it." Steward Wu bowed slightly and left. Soon, the cloud vessel entered Nanqing City and slowly descended. Yi Xian didn't stop on the cloud vessel. Instead, he got off and walked towards the street in the distance. Steward Wu quickly sent a few guards of Drunken Immortal in to follow him from afar. Although the city was large, the inside of the city was desolate. There were not many people on the streets. At a glance, it was quite desolate. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Yi Xian took out his spirit gray sword, which indicated that he was a swordsman. On the street, Yi Xian walked slowly. All of a sudden, a scream came from the right. Yi Xian turned around and saw a group of men chasing a woman in an alley on the right. The woman was panicking as she ran towards Yi Xian. Behind her, several men were chasing the woman like a cat playing with a mouse. Soon, the woman reached Yi Xian and knelt before Yi Xian. "Help, help!" Yi Xian bent down and held the woman's arm with his left hand. Just when he was about to pull her up, the woman suddenly raised her head. In the next moment, a dagger was already at Yi Xian's throat, but it couldn't move any further because Yi Xian's sword had already pierced into the woman's throat. The scene fell into silence. The woman stared at Yi Xian. At this moment, there wasn't a trace of panic on her face, only resentment. "You, how did you know?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Firstly, it's too much of a coincidence. Do you think I have the chance to save the damsel in distress? I don't believe it. Secondly, you're running too normally. Under normal circumstances, your steps should be messy, but you're very normal. Thirdly, your eyes, there's panic in your eyes, but there's no despair. Fourthly, actually, all of these are just my wild guesses. I'm just instinctively on guard. Pfft. She spat out a mouthful of blood essence and fell to the ground. Yi Xian turned around. On the ground in front of him, some strange runes suddenly appeared. Soon, a strange energy fluctuation appeared around him. Formation. Not far away stood an old man. This old man was none other than the cloud ship Steward Wu. Behind Steward Wu, there were 7 men in black. All of them were at the peak of the divine unity realm. Steward Wu looked at Yi Xian and smiled, surprised. This is a spirit sealing formation specially prepared for you. Now, try circulating your profound energy. Yi Xian circulated the profound energy within his body, but the profound energy within his body was deathly still, and he couldn't circulate it at all. Steward Wu smiled. Yi Xian, you underestimate our dark world in Karaki Academy. P.S. I've been typing on my phone lately, so there might be some typos. Sorry. The hospital is too torturous. Genius in a second, remember this site's address. Mobile version. Chapter 185. Dead End? Yi Xian laughed. When he saw Yi Xian laugh, Steward Wu frowned. He still has a trump card? Without hesitation, he waved his right hand. Kill. As soon as he spoke, the 7 men in black behind him dashed out. They were all top-notch assassins and were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived before Yi Xian. Obviously, the spirit sealing formation was only targeting Yi Xian because the men in black were not affected. At this moment, bang! 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 As a series of muffled sounds rang out, the black-clothed men retreated rapidly. Steward Wu's expression changed. This was because there were 5 golden men standing before Yi Xian. However, the 5 golden men were not affected by the spirit sealing formation at all. Naturally, they would not be affected by the spirit sealing formation because the formation inside the bodies of the 5 golden men was much more powerful than the spirit sealing formation. After repelling the men in black, the 5 golden men suddenly bombarded the ground. Steward Wu's eyelids twitched. Retreat! Retreat! Steward Wu and the others turned and ran. The moment he knew that the formation was useless, he chose to retreat decisively because once the formation was broken, Yi Xian would be invincible under the Dharma realm. He was invincible. Before Steward Wu and the others could run far away, an explosion suddenly sounded behind them. The formation was broken. Manager Wu was horrified in his heart, and he suddenly sped up. Right at this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in front of him. Manager Wu's pupils constricted, and he was just about to attack when the sword directly pierced through the center of his forehead. He could not fight back at all. At the same time, the black-clothed men by Manager Wu's side instantly fell to the ground as well. That was because a sword had pierced through their foreheads as well. Behind them, Yi Xian walked over slowly. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Yi Xian shook his head. What a waste of my spiritual stones. As soon as he spoke, he pointed with his finger and the swords flew back into the sword box in his hand. After cleaning up the battlefield, he shook his head. Because these people were too poor. They were so poor that they did not even have 50 million gold coins in total. Top-grade spirit stones were even rarer. As if he had thought of something, he turned his head and looked not far away. There were 2 people standing there. Mu Qingxian and the mistress of the An Empire. In fact, when Yi Xian left the country of Jiang, the Karaki Academy and the Dark World had already sent people to investigate Yi Xian's whereabouts. They naturally had to keep track of Yi Xian's movements at all times. When they learned that Yi Xian had come to the Great Cloud Realm, the 2 of them were already a little flustered. Previously, Yi Xian was passively defending, but now, Yi Xian took the initiative to attack. In a situation where the 10,000 Laws realm could not make a move, who could stop Yi Xian? If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. No one. But the King Dharma realm couldn't make a move. Because Yi Xian also had a backer. If there was no backer, the two forces could still bully the weak and play however they wanted. But the problem was that Yi Xian's backer was too terrifying. Killing the Dharma defensive realm was like killing a chicken, which made them not dare to bully the weak anymore. Helpless. Aggrieved. This was the mood of Mu Qingxian and the mistress of the dark world. Those who could kill Yi Xian did not dare to make a move, and those who could make a move could not kill Yi Xian. How helpless and aggrieved was this? Yi Xian did not speak and turned to leave. Say what? He had nothing to say to the Kuraki Academy and the dark world. Mu Qingxian suddenly appeared not far in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. Mu Qingxian said, "There is no possibility of reconciliation in this matter, right?" Reconciliation? Yi Xian grinned. Who was the one who said to me that I would not rest until one of us is dead? It seems to be you. Why, now, you don't want to rest until one of us is dead? Mu Qingxian said calmly, do you really think you will win? Yi Xian, if we continue to fight, both sides will suffer. You. Yi Xian shook his head, don't talk so much nonsense. If it's not you guys killing me, then it's me killing you. As he said this, he walked around Mu Qingxian and walked into the distance, but soon, he stopped again. By the way, may I ask how to get to the Kuraki Academy? Mu Qingxian, haha, amidst his laughter, Yi Xian disappeared at the end of the street. After Yi Xian left, Mu Qingxian slowly closed his eyes. Beside him, the mistress of the dark world said in a low voice, were you trying to stall for time by making peace with him? Mu Qingxian nodded, if this person goes to the imperial capital, no matter if he goes to the dark world or my Kuraki Academy, you and I will not be able to stop him. Only the headquarters of the divine central continent can stop him. And the headquarters needs time. The reason I made peace before was to buy some time, and this person has clearly seen through my intentions. The mistress of the dark world said in a low voice, what now? Mu Qingxian opened his eyes and looked into the distance. We must stop this person from entering the Great Cloud Imperial Capital. Otherwise, it will be a disaster for the dark world and my Kuraki Academy. Let's go and find the Great Cloud Reliance King. After saying this, the two disappeared. In the city, Yi Xian found the Kuraki Academy, but unfortunately, there was no one in the Kuraki Academy in the city. They all left. Not only did they leave, but all the valuable things in the entire Kuraki Academy had been taken away. Yi Xian could not help but swear at her. Yi Xian did not stop. He turned and left. And now, his goal was the Great Cloud Imperial Capital. Great Cloud Imperial Palace. A woman was sitting on this chapter is not over, please turn the page, in front of a pond. Her feet were floating in the pond. Around her feet, there were countless small black fish. The woman lowered her head and looked at the small fish in the pond. Her pair of pure white jade-like feet gently swayed in the water. Seeing the small fish constantly sucking on her little feet, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up into a smile. At this moment, an armored woman with a long sword at her waist walked in front of the woman by the pond and bowed slightly. My king, Dean Mu, mistress of the dark world, requests an audience. The corner of the woman's mouth rose slightly, and her smile became more charming. Please. The armored woman turned and left. After a while, Mu Qingxian and mistress of the dark world came to the side of the pond. When he saw the woman, Mu Qingxian bowed slightly. Miss Lian. Very polite. In fact, he did not dare to be impolite. Although the Great Cloud Empire was not as strong as before, no one dared to underestimate it. After all, it was once the #1 overlord of Qingzhou. Moreover, this Lian Wanli was even more unfathomable. At least, Kuraki Academy and the Dark World did not know Lian Wanli's true strength. Lian Wanli slowly got up, walked in front of the two, and smiled slightly. Are the two of you here for that Yi Xian? Mu Qingxian nodded. yes. The two of us want to ask for help from Miss Lien. Lien Wanli smiled and said, you are too polite. Kuraki Academy, Dark World, and my Great Cloud Empire are one and should help each other. How about this? I will send out 50 Black Flame cavalrymen. What do the two of you think? Mu Qingxian was overjoyed and quickly said, that would be great. Lien Wanli smiled slightly, however, in order to give an explanation to those stubborn old men in the imperial court. This king hopes that the two of you can give some compensation. It is not much. How about 10 million best-grade spirit stones as a token? Mu Qingxian and Mistress of the Dark World hesitated. Lien Wanli said indifferently, do the two of you think it is not worth it? Mu Qingxian smiled bitterly, it is worth it, of course it is worth it. 10 million it is. Lien Wanli smiled and said, straightforward. And that Yi Xian is not simple, 50 Black Flame cavalrymen might not be enough. How about this? I will gather all the great families and let them contribute. As long as all the powerhouses in my Great Cloud realm join forces, it should not be difficult to get rid of a trifling Yi Xian. Mu Qingxian smiled and said, this is naturally for the best. My Great Cloud realm is united, we are naturally not afraid of that Yi Xian. Lien Wanli suddenly frowned, it is just that these families probably won't cooperate. Mu Qingxian smiled and said, rest assured, you and I have spoken, they won't dare to not cooperate. Lien Wanli smiled, that is good. Mu Qingxian and Mistress of the Dark World thanked him repeatedly, then turned and left. After the two left, Lien Wanli shook his head with a face full of indignation, this Kuraki Academy and Dark World are too bad. So many people bullying one person, really shameless. This king really can't stand it anymore. Come, bring this king's heavy azure dragon blade, this king wants to peel a pear. The Armored Woman, end of this chapter. Chapter 186. Great Cloud Imperial Capital. After leaving South City, Yi Xian boarded another cloud ship, and the destination of this cloud ship was Great Cloud Imperial Capital. On the cloud ship, a steward of Drunken Immortal Inn came in front of Yi Xian. The steward bowed deeply to Yi Xian, young Master Yi, Drunken Immortal Inn has investigated Steward Wu's matter. This person is the spy of Kuraki Academy in Drunken Immortal Inn. For causing trouble to young Master Yi, I apologize to young Master Yi on behalf of Drunken Immortal Inn. Yi Xian smiled and said, it's fine. The steward bowed again, my Drunken Immortal Inn has sent a spy to Great Cloud Imperial Capital. If there is any movement in Great Cloud Imperial Capital, my Drunken Immortal Inn will immediately inform young Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded, thank you for your trouble. The steward said, if young Master Yi has any instructions, just call me at any time. After saying that, he turned and left. Soon, two maids came up behind Yi Xian with 2 fruit trays in their hands. The 2 maids lowered their heads, their faces flushed. Yi Xian turned around, and when he saw the 2 maids, he suddenly froze. He knew them. These 2 maids were the same 2 maids he met on the cloud ship when he returned to Tsanglan Academy. At that time, these 2 maids were going to drug him. Yi Xian picked up a fruit plate and said with a smile, there won't be any drug, right? Hearing this, the 2 maids lowered their heads even more, and their faces became even redder. Seeing the 2 maids' shy appearance, Yi Xian couldn't help but laugh. After a moment, the maid on the left suddenly plucked up her courage and looked at Yi Xian, are you really sword master? Yi Xian smiled and said, of course. And, do you think I'm very handsome? The maid sized up Yi Xian, covered her mouth and laughed, I have never seen such a thick-skinned swordsman, you are the first. Yi Xian was speechless. The maid on the right suddenly pulled the maid on the left and said softly, Tong Tong, don't talk nonsense. The maid named Tong Tong looked at Yi Xian and blinked. You won't be angry, right? Yi Xian deliberately put on a straight face. What do you think? Tong Tong grinned, revealing a row of white teeth, you won't be angry. Because you are a good person. Dandan and I have heard of your deeds in Mizar city. As she spoke, she pulled the arm of the woman beside her called Dandan and said with a tender smile, last time, she was the one who wanted to drug you. Yi Xian was a little curious. What drug? Hearing this, the two women's faces instantly turned red, especially the servant named Dan Dan. She covered her face in embarrassment. Fine. Yi Xian was speechless. From the looks of these two little girls, they were definitely not good medicine. Sigh. Yi Xian let out a deep sigh. He was too handsome, and he had almost made many women commit crimes. At this moment, Tong Tong suddenly walked to Yi Xian's side and chuckled. Let me tell you a secret. Dan Dan's dream is to marry a swordsman. Do you want to die? Dan Dan suddenly hugged Tong Tong and kept tickling her. Soon, the two women were chasing each other on the cloud ship, laughing. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He turned to face the distance. A light breeze blew, warming him up. And at this moment, a white light suddenly appeared in the distant sky. The speed of the white light was small at first, but in the blink of an eye, it had increased dozens of times. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. He turned around abruptly. Be careful. As his voice fell, his figure trembled and he appeared in front of Tong Tong who was closest to him. He blocked Tong Tong with one hand and was about to catch Dan Dan who was still a few feet away from him. Boom. A beam of light that was hundreds of feet long suddenly hit the cloud ship. In an instant, the entire cloud ship collapsed with a loud bang, and countless fragments flew in all directions. In the sky, Yi Xian was falling rapidly with the two women in his arms. Behind him was his goodwill sword intent, and this goodwill sword intent was constantly being destroyed. Every time it was destroyed, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. Soon, just as he was about to fall to the ground, a sword suddenly stopped him. The sword withstood most of the falling force. Just like that, Yi Xian slowly landed on the ground with the two women in his arms. Yi Xian hurriedly put the two women in his arms on the ground. When he saw the two women's condition, his expression instantly sank. Tong Tong was fine because he had protected her at the first moment, so she was not seriously injured. As for Dan Dan, Dan Dan was the first to suffer the impact of the beam of light. The meridians and organs in her body were all ruptured. Yi Xian hurriedly took out a golden sore pill and fed it to Dan Dan. However, blood kept flowing from her mouth. Dan Dan looked at Yi Xian. She slowly raised her hands and hugged Yi Xian's cheeks. Tears kept flowing from her eyes. I don't want to die. Yi Xian hurriedly took out a few more pills and fed them to Dan Dan. However, it was still useless. Blood kept flowing from the corner of her mouth, and the vitality in her body was also rapidly disappearing. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's tears instantly flowed. I'm sorry. Dan Dan gently wiped the tears from Yi Xian's cheeks with both hands. Are you crying for me? Yi Xian held Dan Dan's hands tightly and said painfully, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, Dan Dan grinned, and this grin caused more blood to flow out. She looked at Yi Xian. Suddenly, she smiled. Although I can't marry a swordsman, to be able to die in the arms of a swordsman. Moreover, in the arms of our Qingzhou's most powerful swordsman, at this point, more blood gushed out of her mouth. At the same time, her breath was also getting weaker. At this time, she gently stroked Yi Xian's cheeks. Her eyes began to slowly close. If only I could live, that would be great. Yi Xian hugged Dan Dan tightly. His whole body was trembling. Sensing that Dan Dan's breath was getting weaker, he suddenly raised his head and roared. At this moment, countless white mist suddenly gushed out of his body. Soon, all the white mist poured into Dan Dan's body. The substantial goodwill sword essence. More and more goodwill sword essence flowed into Dan Dan's body. Soon, Her broken meridians and organs were tightly wrapped by the goodwill sword essence. At this time, an old man suddenly landed beside Yi Xian. The old man quickly walked in front of Yi Xian and said, "State Scholar Yi, old man, 6th floor master of Drunken Immortal Inn, can you?" Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Look at her, look at her." "Hurry up." The 6th floor master looked at Dan Dan in Yi Xian's arms. He placed his right hand on Dan Dan's pulse. After a moment, he frowned deeply. Although her organs are protected by State Scholar Ye's sword essence, but how? Yi Xian directly interrupted the 6th floor master's words. The 6th floor master said in a deep voice, "Heart shield pill. This pill can protect her heart and meridians. It can also slowly heal her. However, one pill is probably not enough. She needs to take it for a long time. This heart shield pill costs about 60 million gold coins." Yi Xian said, "I will pay for it. Give it to me immediately." The 6th floor master glanced at Yi Xian. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Young Master Yi, she is just a maidservant." "You," Yi Xian suddenly turned to the 6th floor master and shouted angrily, "Is a maidservant's life so worthless?" The 6th floor master did not say anything else. He turned and left. In less than a quarter of an hour, he returned in front of Yi Xian. He handed a white jade bottle to Yi Xian. Yi Xian hurriedly opened the white jade bottle and poured out a pill for Dan Dan to consume. As soon as the heart shield pill entered her body, a strange energy instantly spread to her limbs and bones. Soon, Dan Dan's aura gradually stabilized. Sensing this, Yi Xian immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, the 6th floor master said, "Young Master Yi, the previous matter has been investigated. The ones who attacked the cloud ship were Kuraki Academy and Dark World. That light beam was fired by the cloud-piercing cannon. The cloud-piercing cannon is comparable to a true-grade spiritual artifact. It is specially used to deal with air attacks. Their actions are to prevent you from entering the imperial capital. And now, you cannot ride the cloud ship. Kuraki Academy. Dark World." Yi Xian's face was incomparably gloomy. To be precise, it was ferocious. After a moment, Yi Xian faced the 6th floor master and said, "If I don't ride the cloud ship, how long will it take to reach the imperial capital?" The 6th floor master pondered for a moment and said, "Even if I ride the fastest black flame horse, I'm afraid it will take at least half a month." "Half a month?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Too slow. Is there any other way?" The 6th floor master thought for a moment and shook his head. "The fastest way is to ride the black flame horse. Even with the black flame horse, you might not be able to reach the imperial capital in half a month. That's because the journey to the imperial capital is too long. Even the black flame horse can't pass through some remote areas." At this point, he hesitated for a moment and said, "You can stay here for now. We can discuss this further." "Discuss further?" Yi Xian shook his head. "They are after my life. What's the point of discussing?" The 6th floor master sighed. "My friend, even if you want to ride the black flame horse, you won't be able to because the black flame horse only exists in the Great Cloud Empire. At this moment, he suddenly turned to look at a place not far away. There was a horse galloping towards him. There was a patch of black flame under its feet. Black flame horse. Soon, the black flame horse arrived beside Yi Xian and stopped there quietly. Seeing this, the 6th floor master's face sank. Yi Xian remained silent for a long time. Finally, he faced the 6th floor master. "Take care of them. I will pay for the elixirs they consume." After saying that, he flicked his finger and a golden card landed in front of the 6th floor master. Yi Xian faced Tong Tong and Dandan. "Take care of yourself. Live well." After saying that, he turned to leave. At this moment, Tong Tong suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's hand. Yi Xian turned his head. Tong Tong stared at Yi Xian. We are just lowly maidservants. You, Yi Xian shook his head. There is no difference in life. Take care of yourself. After saying that, he leaped onto the black flame horse. Soon, he disappeared from the sight of Tong Tong and the sixth-floor master. Looking at Yi Xian, Tong Tong was a little dazed. Great Cloud Empire, Imperial Palace. A woman sat in front of the Golden Dragon Palace. She lowered her head and counted the ants in front of her. 1, 2, 3, 4. Io, you little fellows, don't move. Don't move. Don't. I'm so angry. I counted wrong again. After saying that, she snorted heavily and started counting again. 1, 2. At this moment, an armored woman walked to the woman's side. Your Majesty, Kuraki College and Dark World are attacking again. After a while, the woman suddenly raised her head and looked at the armored woman. He is willing to spend hundreds of millions to save those two maidservants. The armored woman nodded. The woman was silent for a moment. Then, she smiled. Interesting. The armored woman said again. The Black Flame Cavalry and experts from various aristocratic families have gone to stop them. Your Majesty. The woman waved her hand. Don't bother me. I want to count the ants here. 1, 2, 3. The armored woman. P.S. There are some changes in the recent updates. Sorry, everyone. Clasped fist. Chapter 187. Kuraki Academy. At this moment, all the instructors and elders of Kuraki Academy were gathered within the hall. There were a total of 9 Dharma realm experts within the hall. Mu Qingxian was seated at the seat of the host. Mu Qingxian glanced at them. With Yi Xian's current speed, he'll be able to arrive at the imperial capital in less than half a month. At that time, so long as the Dharma realm doesn't act, then no one in the imperial capital will be able to stop him. But if he comes to our academy, then we can only watch as he slaughters the students of our academy. The Dharma realm experts couldn't act. The expressions of everyone here instantly turned gloomy. They wanted to act, but that sword Immortal was like a sword that hung above their heads, so they didn't dare act rashly at all. Li Mu from the Central Divine Prefecture was the best example. He was an expert at the law control realm. However, he'd still died, and he'd died in such a humiliating manner. There was no solution. This was a situation that was impossible to resolve. Meanwhile, an old man suddenly stepped forward. It's clearly impossible to seek peace in such a situation. Since we can't do that, then we can only fight to the death. As he spoke, he gazed at Mu Qingxian. Has the headquarters replied? The headquarters. Everyone here gazed at Mu Qingxian when they heard this. Presently, their only hope was the headquarters of Kuraki Academy. Mu Qingxian nodded. The headquarters needs some time. The old man asked, how long? Mu Qingxian spoke in a low voice, at least a month. The old man frowned. Why is it taking so long? It only takes a few days for the Central Divine Prefecture to travel to Pine Prefecture through teleportation formations. Why is it taking so long? Mu Qingxian glanced at the old man. Do you think anyone in the younger generation of the headquarters can kill Yi Xian? The surroundings instantly fell silent when they heard this. At this moment, they noticed to their astonishment that not to mention Great Cloud Realm's Kuraki Academy, no one in the younger generation of the Central Divine Prefecture could stop Yi Xian. Even if it was the headquarters of the Central Divine Prefecture, no one in the younger generation could stop Yi Xian. Besides the monstrous geniuses in the top 10 of the monstrous genius rankings, no one in the younger generation of the Central Divine Prefecture could stop Yi Xian. The Sword Master. Even in the Central Divine Continent, a sword master who wasn't even 20 years old would be a top-notch genius. In the hall, the old man sighed softly. This person is unstoppable. Li Xuansong, the dean of the state of Zhang's Kuraki Academy, was truly foolish back then. From the very beginning until now, it would be a lie if Kuraki Academy said he didn't regret it. Because the school that Yi Xian wanted to join the most was Kuraki Academy. If Yi Xian had joined Kuraki Academy, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Mu Qingxian said indifferently, the matter is already over, there's no need to mention it again. The headquarters has already asked for help from another place. It can be said that the ones who want Yi Xian dead are not only my Kuraki Academy and the Dark World. There is another faction that has already contacted my Kuraki Academy. We only need to stop Yi Xian from entering the imperial capital. At the very least, we can't let him enter the imperial capital within a month. Below, the old man said in a deep voice, this person obtained a flaming horse, so he must have received help from someone in the dark. Could it be the Great Cloud Empire? After all, only the Great Cloud Empire has flaming horses. Mu Qingxian shook his head, the Great Cloud Empire also has a grudge with Yi Xian, so they have no reason to help Yi Xian. Moreover, if the Great Cloud Empire wants to unify Azure Province, they must get rid of Yi Xian. Therefore, this matter is definitely not the work of the Great Cloud Empire. Speaking of this, he seemed to have thought of something and a cold light flashed in his eyes. This matter might be the work of the Drunken Immortal Inn. Drunken Immortal Inn. Currently, everyone in the world knows that the Drunken Immortal Inn has been supporting Yi Xian. At this moment, the space in front of Mu Qingxian suddenly trembled. After about 15 minutes, Mu Qingxian looked at the people below and said with some excitement, this time, Yi Xian will definitely die. Pass down the order, do everything possible to stop Yi Xian from entering the imperial capital and wait for reinforcements. Yes. The people in the hall replied in unison and then left. Country of Jiang, Azure Wave Academy. In front of the Azure Wave Palace, Missouri Yuan sat in front of the stone steps, and beside him was Feng Lan. Mo Yuan looked at the letter in his hand, and after a long time, the letter in his hand burned. What's wrong? Feng Lan asked. Mo Yuan said softly, he has already entered the Great Cloud Realm, and Kuraki Academy and Dark World are doing their best to stop him from entering the Great Cloud Imperial Capital. I'm afraid his situation is not too good. Feng Lan said solemnly, take action. Mo Yuan shook his head, if the Confucian sect takes action, although we can solve his current predicament, it will bring him more trouble. Inform little Lu to be ready to let that Dao soldier enter the Great Cloud Realm at any time. Feng Lan said solemnly, although that Dao soldier has cultivated the military heart sutra, it has only been trained for a short time, and its combat power is probably insufficient. Mo Yuan smiled, if it doesn't experience battles, this Dao soldier will never be able to grow. Feng Lan thought about it and then nodded, that's true. After saying that, he got up and left. Mo Yuan looked up at the sky and said softly, Kuraki Academy, I advise you to be kind. In the vast mountain range, Yi Xian rode the black flame horse and galloped all the way. It has to be said that the black flame horse was really fast. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to withstand the speed of the black flame horse, because it was too fast. On the back of the horse, Yi Xian was expressionless. Behind him, there was a sword box, and inside the sword box, there were 7 swords. Half an hour later, Yi Xian arrived at an ancient city. Pingyang City. The Great Cloud Realm was not like the country of Jiang. The Great Cloud Realm was too big, and if he kept going around, let alone half a month, he would not be able to reach the Great Cloud Imperial Capital in 2 months. After entering Pingyang City, Yi Xian did not stop and went straight to the Imperial Capital. However, when he arrived at the city gate, the gate was tightly shut. More than 50 men in black appeared on the city wall. These men in black all held longbows in their hands, and the arrows were already knocked on the bowstrings. Apart from them, several thousand guards suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian, holding long spears in their hands. Obviously, there was an ambush here. In front of the city wall, an old man suddenly appeared and stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, this is not the country of Jiang. You can't come and go as you please. Think. At this moment, the sword box on Yi Xian's back suddenly trembled slightly, and in the next moment, 7 swords suddenly soared into the sky. Seeing this scene, the old man's expression changed drastically. Release the arrows. On the city wall, the arrows in the hands of the 50 men in black had just flown out, and in the next moment, their heads flew off one after another. In less than 2 breaths of time, the heads of the 50 men on the city wall were all removed. Below, the 50 arrows were all blocked by Yi Xian's spirit elegant sword, because these arrows were not as fast as his sword. In fact, it should be said that there was no comparison at all. Soon, the 7 swords flew back into the sword box one after another, and behind Yi Xian, the soldiers were already stunned on the spot, and none of them dared to make a move. Holding the spirit elegant sword, Yi Xian pointed at the old man in front of the city gate. Can you stop them? As soon as he said that, the black flame horse under him leaped and charged toward the city gate. At the same time, a sword directly slashed at the city gate. Boom! The city gate suddenly collapsed, and Yi Xian left in a cloud of dust. Outside the city, Yi Xian suddenly stopped because there were nearly 1,000 cavalrymen hundreds of feet away from him. Great Cloud Cavalrymen. In front of the cavalrymen, the leader of the cavalrymen suddenly roared. Kill! As soon as he said that, 1,000 cavalrymen charged straight at Yi Xian. 1,000 cavalrymen was not a lot, but when they formed a formation and charged together, it was still very terrifying. Yi Xian was expressionless. He patted the black flame horse lightly with both legs and leaped into the air. When he landed on the ground, he tapped his right foot lightly and flew high into the air again. At the same time, 7 flying swords suddenly flew out of the sword case on his back. Chi 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 chi, dozens of feet away, more than 30 cavalrymen fell to the ground almost at the same time. And that group of cavalrymen also drowned Yi Xian in an instant. There was a moment of silence. Among the cavalrymen, the sound of swords rang out. Then, 7 sword lights shot out from the group of cavalrymen. Wherever the sword lights passed, Great Cloud cavalrymen were directly cut in half at the waist. In front of the city gate, the old man stared at Yi Xian in the group of cavalrymen, his hands trembling. Yi Xian. Before this, he had only heard of Yi Xian's name and didn't have an accurate understanding of Yi Xian. But now, he knew him. Sword Master. A sword master who was less than 20 years old had such terrifying strength. At this moment, not far away, nearly 300 cavalrymen had fallen, and more were falling to the ground. No one could stop Yi Xian's sword. A quarter of an hour later, there were less than 500 cavalrymen left. Without the power to charge, the momentum and strength of these cavalrymen were also greatly reduced. Slaughter. Yi Xian was still slaughtering. An hour later, there were less than 100 cavalrymen left, and these 100 cavalrymen were already far away from Yi Xian. Corpses were everywhere around Yi Xian. Yi Xian stood among the countless corpses, holding the Lingxiu sword. A smear of blood slowly flowed down the blade of the Lingxiu sword. Yi Xian walked toward the 100 cavalrymen with the sword in his hand. Seeing this scene, the 100 cavalrymen's expressions changed drastically. At this moment, they were already afraid. Really afraid. In the beginning, they were not afraid when there were only 1,000 people. What were they afraid of when it was 1,000 against 1? But now, in the blink of an eye, there were only 100 of them left. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly sped up. Seeing this, the remaining 100 cavalrymen turned and ran, but Yi Xian clearly didn't want to let them go. 7 swords suddenly flew out of the sword case on his back, and the next moment, the heads of more than a dozen cavalrymen in the distance were directly sent flying. However, there were still some cavalrymen who had fled. Because these cavalrymen fled in different directions. In the distance, Yi Xian stood in front of a cavalryman who was still twitching. This cavalryman looked at Yi Xian in fear. He wanted to escape, but he couldn't escape at all. Because just now, both his legs had been chopped off by Yi Xian's sword. Yi Xian lowered his head and looked at his right hand. At this moment, he realized that his right hand had already lost all feeling. Numb. Numb from killing. At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared a few dozen feet away from Yi Xian. Mu Qingxian. Mu Qingxian looked at Yi Xian, and his lips curled into a smile. You're very good at killing. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning. My Kuraki College has hundreds of thousands of people in Qingzhou, and there are also Dark World and countless aristocratic families. Yi Xian, can you kill them all? At this point, his smile suddenly became somewhat sinister. Even if I'm tired, I'll tire you to death. Chapter 188. Tire himself to death? Yi Xian smiled. In fact, he knew that the best outcome for him now was to sue for peace with Kuraki College and Dark World. As long as he took the initiative to sue for peace, there was still a possibility of reconciliation. However, he would not sue for peace. Not even if he died. Not even if he took the initiative to sue for peace, even if Kuraki College and Dark World came to sue for peace, he would not agree. Because old Ji was dead. Old Ji. He had never forgotten this old man. Back then, Kuraki College and Dark World joined hands to kill old Ji. As for old Ji, he could have left, but in order to protect Ji Anji and the other two, old Ji didn't take a single step back. He must take revenge for this. If he did not take revenge, he would not be a man. Moreover, he knew that there was no possibility of reconciliation. He would not believe Kuraki College and Dark World and Kuraki College would not believe him. As long as he gave these two forces a chance, they would give him a destructive blow. Not only against him, but also against the people around him. Tire himself to death? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Even if I tire myself to death, I will kill you before I die. After saying that, he pointed the spirit-elegant sword at Mu Qingxian in the distance. Your Kuraki College has many people? No problem, I will kill as many as they come. After saying that, he turned and walked towards the black flame horse not far away. Soon, Yi Xian disappeared from Mu Qingxian's sight on the black flame horse. Mu Qingxian stood in the same place and did not speak for a long time. He knew that Kuraki College had met a person who was not afraid of death and trouble. He also knew what Kuraki Academy would face if Yi Xian arrived at the capital of the Great Cloud Empire before the reinforcements from the headquarters arrived. Disaster. Once Yi Xian entered the Great Cloud Imperial capital, it would be a disaster for Kuraki College. Because at that time, no one could stop Yi Xian. Mu Qingxian turned and left. Not long after Mu Qingxian left, an armored woman with a long sword at her waist came outside the city. The woman glanced at the corpses on the ground. All of them were killed with a single sword strike. In the same place, the armored woman remained silent for a long time. Then, she turned around and entered the city. She went directly to the city lord's mansion. An old man quickly came out to welcome her. This subordinate greets milord. The armored woman glanced at the old man coldly. 1,000 cavalrymen and thousands of soldiers. Who gave you the order to send them out of the city to fight against Yi Xian? Hearing this, the old man broke out in a cold sweat. The armored woman continued, You receive the salary of my Great Cloud Empire, but work as a dog for Kuraki Academy. With that, she turned around and left. Behind her, the old man's head had unknowingly fallen to the ground. In the city lord's mansion, the armored woman took out a book. She lightly scribbled on it. Another tumor has been removed. With that, she turned around and left. 2 hours later, dozens of people entered the city and retook control of Pingyang City. Yi Xian was sitting by a river. The black flame horse was drinking water not far from him. Yi Xian took off his clothes. There were many bloodstains on his body. All of them were from the previous injuries. Without the Tao law, he didn't have the power of earth. It was impossible for him to come out unscathed in a battle with more than 1,000 cavalrymen. Yi Xian swallowed a golden sore pill and began to wash his body with the river water. Soon, the river water in front of him was dyed red. A quarter of an hour later, Yi Xian got up and was about to leave. At this moment, there was a sudden change. A person suddenly rushed out of the river in front of him. At the same time, a cold light pierced his throat. Yi Xian's face was calm. When the cold light was about half an inch away from his throat, it abruptly stopped. Because a sword had pierced the forehead of the person in front of him. Blood seeped out from the bottom of the river. Yi Xian opened his right palm and the sword flew into it. Yi Xian turned around and left. On the river surface behind him, a corpse floated down along with the river. Assassinate him? Ever since he entered the Great Cloud Realm, Yi Xian, had kept one eye open even when he slept. Moreover, when he was washing his body just now, he had already anticipated what would happen if there was someone at the bottom of the river. Now, no matter where he went, he was prepared for the worst. If someone wanted to assassinate him, they had to be faster than his sword. Soon, Yi Xian disappeared not far away. After Yi Xian left, an armored woman came to the riverside. The armored woman glanced at the corpse floating on the river. Killed with one sword. Clean and neat. After a moment of silence, the armored woman looked in the direction Yi Xian left. Is he going to kill his way to the imperial capital? 2 hours later. At night. The sky darkened and the entire land was pitch black. Yi Xian rode the black flame horse to a piece of flat land and lay on the black flame horse. Rest. He naturally had to rest. Without sleep, he would not be able to concentrate, which was even worse for him. Clearly, someone did not want him to rest. In the surrounding darkness, there was a sudden sound of fragmented footsteps. These footsteps were obviously made deliberately. But Yi Xian did not move. About an hour later, those fragmented footsteps were getting closer and closer to Yi Xian, but Yi Xian still did not move. Therefore, those footsteps were getting closer. At this moment, a sword light flashed like a bolt of lightning in this dark night. Chi! A few dozen feet to the left of Yi Xian, a bloody head suddenly fell to the ground. The sword flew back to Yi Xian's side, while Yi Xian was still sleeping soundly. On the other side, 2 people were staring at Yi Xian on the horse in the distance. These 2 people were the mistress of the dark world and Mu Qingxian. The mistress of the dark world shook her head. We are assassins of the dark world. Even the Dao soldiers of the divine central continent cannot do anything to him. Mu Qingxian was silent. The mistress of the dark world said, if we can't stop this person, with his current speed, I'm afraid it will not take half a month to reach the Great Cloud Imperial capital. Mu Qingxian turned to look at the mistress of the dark world. Which city is the closest to this place? The mistress of the dark world said in a deep voice, Longyu City. Mu Qingxian nodded. Let Longyu City be prepared. Even if we can't kill this person, we must delay him for a few hours. The mistress of the dark world shook her head. This city is not under our control. Hearing this, Mu Qingxian frowned. Then informed the Great Cloud Empire and let them pass the order. The mistress of the dark world said indifferently, by the time that King Kaoshan gives the order, this Yi Xian will have already passed by Longyu City. Mu Qingxuan's frown deepened. After a moment, he said again, has there been a bounty? The mistress of the dark world glanced at Mu Qingxian. Now in the Azure province, who dares to come and kill Yi Xian? Who dares? Who can? Mu Qingxuan's face instantly darkened. At this moment, he realized to what extent Yi Xian's influence had reached. The youngest sword master in the Azure province. Just this title alone was enough to deter everyone. If it wasn't for the hatred between Kuraki College and Yi Xian, no matter how high the reward was, Kuraki College wouldn't come and target Yi Xian. Even Kuraki College was like this, let alone others. Mu Qingxian raised his head and looked at Yi Xian, who was not far away. His eyes gradually became a little dazed. No one can stop him. Speaking until here, his dazed eyes suddenly became vicious. Since we can't target him, then target the people around him. Target the state of Jiang, target Sanglan Academy, target his sister. These people can't be as invincible as him, right? Finishing, he looked at the mistress of the Dark World. Let the Dark World assassins and the elites of Kuraki College take the cloud ship to the state of Jiang. For every step he takes, kill one person from the state of Jiang and Sanglan Academy. Let's see if Yi Xian will return or not. Also, let the headquarters look for the whereabouts of his sister. Doesn't he care about his sister? If his sister falls into the hands of Kuraki College, let's see if Yi Xian can still be so arrogant. P.S. Qing Wan. Chapter 189. Mu Qingshuan's voice was very loud and he also used Xian Qi. Not to mention Yi Xian, who was not far away, everyone within a radius of 1 li could clearly hear his words. Obviously, he deliberately said this to Yi Xian. Against the state of Jiang. Against Azure Waves Academy. This was Mu Qingshuan's current goal. Because he discovered that he could no longer target Yi Xian. Whether it was experts or assassins, they could no longer stop Yi Xian's advance. The only way now was to target the state of Jiang and Azure Waves Academy and force Yi Xian to return. In the dark night, Mu Qingxian looked coldly at Yi Xian, who was in the distance. But Yi Xian still didn't move, and he even started snoring. Mu Qingxian did not say anything and turned to leave with the mistress of the Dark World. An hour later, 5 cloud ships left the Great Cloud Imperial capital and headed for the state of Jiang. Inside these 5 cloud ships were the elites of Kuraki Academy and Dark World. On the Black Flame Horse, Yi Xian sat up and took out the sound transmission stone. About a quarter of an hour later, Lu Jioga's voice came from the sound transmission stone. Don't worry, if they come, they will not be able to return. Yi Xian put away the sound transmission stone and continued to sleep. In fact, he was not worried because the current Azure Waves Academy was no longer the Azure Waves Academy of the past. If the elites of Kuraki Academy and Dark World went, they would not be able to gain any advantage. Unless the Dao soldiers of the headquarters went, the current Azure Waves Academy was not afraid of Kuraki Academy and Dark World. At daybreak, Yi Xian set off. His goal was still the Great Cloud Imperial capital. The news of Yi Xian entering the Great Cloud realm also spread at this moment, especially the matter of Yi Xian single-handedly annihilating 1,000 cavalries in Pingyang City. At first, it was still one person single-handedly against 1,000, but later on, it became one person single-handedly against 10,000, and later on, it became one person single-handedly against 100,000. In short, at this moment, Yi Xian was undoubtedly the most dazzling person in the Azure Prefecture. And everyone knew that Yi Xian's targets were the Kuraki Academy and the Dark World, the 2 strongest forces in the Qingzhou region. At noon, Yi Xian arrived at an ancient city. Longshi City. On the city wall, a middle-aged man looked down at Yi Xian, who was entering the city, and said with a smile, "This person is Yi Xian?" A guard beside the middle-aged man nodded. It should be true. The middle-aged man smiled faintly, as expected of the youngest sword master of my Qingzhou. Such bearing and courage are rare in the younger generation of my Qingzhou. The guard said in a deep voice, "City Lord, Kuraki Academy sent a message, hoping that we can stop this person." Stop him? The middle-aged man's smile turned cold. You want to use the lives of my Longstone City soldiers to stop me? Kuraki Academy sure has a good plan. The guard said in a deep voice, "If we don't send troops to stop Yi Xian, I'm afraid Kuraki Academy will." The middle-aged man glanced at the guard beside him. Kuraki Academy? I only listen to King Kaoshan's orders. Pass down the order. No one in the city is allowed to stop Yi Xian. Anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy. The guard bowed slightly. Understood. After saying this, he turned and left. On the city wall, the middle-aged man turned around. At this moment, Yi Xian had already entered the city. Watching Yi Xian slowly disappear at the end of the street, the middle-aged man did not speak for a long time. Inside the city. When Yi Xian was about to leave the city, at the city gate stood an old man wearing a gray robe. The old man's right hand was hidden in his sleeve, while his left hand held 2 black iron balls. 10,000 Laws Realm. In the corner, the people of Longstone City frowned. This Karaki Academy was going to send out 10,000 Laws Realm? Opposite Yi Xian, the old man in gray robe stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, old man, Karaki Academy's teacher, this time, I came to tell you that my Karaki Academy and the elites of Dark World are about to enter Jiang country's territory. If you don't return, your Tsang Lan Academy and the Jiang country's royal family will die without a burial place. Yi, this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Xian expressionlessly rode the black flame horse and continued forward. Being ignored, the old man's face instantly sank. In his left palm, the 2 black iron balls made a cracking sound. He wanted to attack. He really wanted to attack. Because if he attacked, he was very confident that he could kill Yi Xian. After all, he was at 10,000 Laws Realm, while Yi Xian was only at Ethereal Opening Realm. Yi Xian and he were 2 whole realms apart. But the problem was, he did not dare. Li Mu was a law-controlling realm expert, but he still died in such a dubious way. Gradually, the old man's left hand loosened. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He turned to face the old man. Want to hit me? Come on then. Come on. The old man's loosened left hand clenched again. He turned to stare at Yi Xian, his whole face slightly distorted. Yi Xian suddenly jumped off the black flame horse. He directly walked in front of the old man, then pointed at himself. Come, hit me. In the corner, the Longshore City Lord's mouth slightly twitched. This Yi Xian, and in front of Yi Xian, the old man's hands were already slightly trembling. This was a sign that he was extremely angry. Seeing that the old man did not make a move, Yi Xian's mouth curled into a sneer. He also did not make a move. He turned around and mounted the black flame horse. He quickly disappeared not far away. In the same place, the old man suddenly fiercely slammed his palm on the ground. Bang! The entire ground instantly exploded, forming a huge crater. The old man's face was terrifyingly gloomy. This was the first time he was provoked by a Nether Passage realm ant like this, and he could not make a move. Aggrieved. He had never been so aggrieved before. At that moment, he really wanted to make a move. But he still forcefully endured it. Because if he made a move, he would just be throwing his life away. Moreover, the celebrity Yi Xian was deliberately provoking him. Even an expert like Li Mu could not fight back in front of that sword Immortal, let alone him. After a moment, the old man deeply sighed, turned around and left. Outside the city, Yi Xian rode the black flame horse forward. Actually, he had hoped that the old man would make a move, because he wanted to see how far his current strength was from the Dharma realm. There was definitely a gap. Even though he was now a sword master, holding a true level sword and sword sheath, he was very clear that there was still a gap between him and the Dharma realm. After all, he was currently only at the Nether Passage realm. And he wanted to know how big the gap was. He did not have a clear idea of his current strength. Few people under the Dharma realm could block his sword, but what about the Dharma realm? Simply put, he really wanted to fight with the Dharma realm. The reason why he did not take the initiative to make a move was because he did not want to waste time. His current goal was the Great Cloud Imperial Capital. After leaving the city, Yi Xian sped up. In the next 2 days, Yi Xian did not encounter any trouble, and everything went smoothly. Therefore, he passed through 3 more cities, getting closer and closer to the Great Cloud Imperial Capital. However, the cloud ships of Karaki College and Dark World had also entered the territory of Jiang country. Outside the Jiang country's imperial capital, 3 cloud ships slowly descended, and soon, nearly 100 people disembarked from the cloud ships, including more than 30 black-clothed people. These black-clothed people had just disembarked and were about to conceal themselves. Suddenly, more than 30 arrows shot over from an unknown place. Seeing this scene, the faces of the students of Kuraki College and the black-clothed people changed greatly, and they retreated rapidly. However, it was still a little too late, and more than a dozen people were directly pierced by the arrows and fell to the ground. At the same time, more than 70 cavalrymen suddenly rushed out of the city. When they saw these 70 people, the faces of the students of Kuraki College changed greatly. Black Flame Cavalrymen. Because these 70 people were exactly the same as the legendary Black Flame Cavalrymen. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page, exactly the same. Black Flame Cavalrymen? The students of Kuraki College and the assassins of Dark World were dumbfounded. At this moment, the 70 cavalrymen were getting closer and closer to them, and the momentum of their charge was simply earth-shattering. Some of the students of Kuraki College recovered from their shock and roared furiously, "Meet the enemy! Meet the enemy!" As soon as the voice resounded, the 70 cavalrymen had already charged over. In an instant, miserable shrieks resounded in the battlefield. On the distant city wall, there were tens of thousands of soldiers waiting in formation. Presently, Zhanglan College's status in Jiang country was extremely high, and it was also respected by countless people. No one would agree to touch Zhanglan College. On the city wall, Lu Jioga sat in a wheelchair, and beside her were Mo Yuan and Feng Lan. All of them were overlooking the battlefield below. At this moment, more than half of the so-called elites of Kuraki College had died, crushing. The 70 cavalrymen had completely crushed the students of Kuraki College. On the city wall, Mo Yuan smiled faintly, "These Dao soldiers are extremely effective." Lu Jioga chuckled lightly, countless gold coins piled up. Speaking until here, she seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly raised her head to look at the sky above the cloud ship. There was an old man hovering there. This person was the elder of Kuraki College who led the team this time. Looking at the battlefield below, the old man clenched his fists, and his expression was extremely ugly. He had never expected that Zhanglan College actually had Black Flame Cavalrymen. Naturally, this wasn't the Black Flame Cavalrymen of Great Cloud Empire. Obviously, it was a new cavalry unit that Zhanglan College had established after obtaining that batch of cavalry equipment. And the combat strength of this cavalry unit was so terrifying. If this continued, all the students of Kuraki College below would be killed. Thinking of this, the old man slightly raised his right hand, and just when he was about to attack, a black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of him. Fifth floor master of Drunken Immortal Inn. Fifth floor master looked at the old man without saying a word, but his aura had already locked onto the old man. The old man looked at fifth floor master. "Your Drunken Immortal Inn is really going to..." Fifth floor master waved his hand, "Don't talk too much. If you attack, you will die here today." Hearing that, the old man's expression turned extremely ugly. At this moment, all the students of Kuraki College below were killed. As for the assassins of Dark World, they had already escaped because they couldn't attack at all. The defensive strength of the armor that these 70 people wore was too terrifying. At this moment, a Dao soldier of Zhanglan College suddenly took off his helmet, revealing a delicate and pretty face of a woman. Jian Chu-Chu. Looking at the corpses on the battlefield, Jian Chu-Chu said excitedly, "Clean up the battlefield." As she spoke, she pointed at the 3 cloud ships that had stopped in the distance with her umbrella sword. "Hurry up and occupy them. These are our, everyone, Great Cloud Realm." On this day, Yi Xian arrived at another city. Just when he was about to enter the city, a man blocked his way. The man held a spear in his hand, and judging from his age, he seemed to be in his 20s. The man looked at Yi Xian with excitement in his eyes. Because as long as he held off Yi Xian for 2 hours, he would get hundreds of millions of gold coins. 2 hours, hundreds of millions of gold coins. That was great news. The man was about to speak, but at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. The man's expression changed drastically, and the spear in his hand was about to attack, but at this moment, a sword was already at his forehead. The man's body stiffened. Yi Xian held the sword and pointed it forward lightly. What do you want to say? The man looked at Yi Xian for a long time, and in the end, his right hand that was holding the spear slowly loosened, and he said softly, I am just passing by. End of this chapter. Chapter 190. Just passing by. Yi Xian was amused. Passing by? The guy in front of him was not passing by at all, he came to find trouble with him. However, Yi Xian did not kill him. He sheathed his sword. Yi Xian left on the black flame horse. Yi Xian left. In the same place, cold sweat dripped down the spear-wielding man's forehead. He was at the peak of the divine fusion realm, one of the best among the younger generation in Qingzhou. However, just now, he was shocked to find that he couldn't even fight back in front of Yi Xian, let alone stall Yi Xian for an hour. The gap in strength was too big. After a while, the man shook his head with a bitter smile, then turned and left. Great Cloud Imperial Capital, Kuraki Academy. In the main hall, all the higher-ups of Kuraki Academy were present. The atmosphere in the hall was solemn. The elite sent by Tsanglan Academy to the state of Jiang had been wiped out. This was not the main point. The main point was that Yi Xian did not return, and Tsanglan Academy alone had wiped out the elites of Kuraki Academy. This meant that Tsanglan Academy had risen. Mu Qingxian sat in the main seat, his expression extremely cold. From the beginning to the present, Great Cloud Realm's Kuraki Academy had lost too much. Although not many 10,000 Law Realm powerhouses had died, too many geniuses under 10,000 Law Realm had died. It had hurt their foundation. It could be said that even if Yi Xian stopped now, there would be a talent gap in the future of Kuraki Academy. After all, these young students were the future of Kuraki Academy. And now, 50 to 60% of these young students had died. If Yi Xian arrived at the imperial capital, Yi Xian would definitely kill his way to Kuraki Academy. No one wanted to see that scene. At this moment, someone suddenly asked, with Yi Xian's current speed, how long will it take for him to reach the imperial capital? An old man said solemnly, if no one stops him, he can reach the imperial capital in about 10 days, 10 days. All of them gazed at Mu Qingxian. Mu Qingxian said lightly, if we can't stop him for 20 days, when the reinforcements from the headquarters arrive, the younger generation of Kuraki Academy would have been slaughtered by him. Stop Yi Xian for 20 days. The problem was, how could they stop Yi Xian when the Dharma Realm powerhouse couldn't make a move? Mu Qingxian suddenly got up and left. Everyone in the hall looked at each other. After Mu Qingxian left Kuraki Academy, he went to the Imperial Palace of Great Cloud Empire. Unfortunately, he was stopped by a maid outside the palace gate. Mu Qingxian glanced into the depths of the palace. Send a message, requesting an audience with King Kaoshan. The maid bowed slightly. Reporting to Dean Mu, King Kaoshan is not in the palace. Mu Qingxian frowned. Not in the palace? Where is it? The maid shook her head. This servant does not know. Mu Qingxian was silent for a long time. In the end, his expression gradually became sinister. Yi Xian, you forced this. Since you don't want to give up, then let's all perish together. With that, he turned around and left. Inside the palace, a woman was squatting on the ground. In front of her was a row of black ants. The woman counted them one by one. 1, 2, 3. At this moment, a maid walked to the woman's side. Your Majesty, Dean Mu has left. The woman didn't reply and continued counting. The maid obediently retreated to the side and didn't dare to disturb her. After an unknown amount of time, the woman suddenly clapped her hands and said excitedly, 471. Speaking of this, she slightly frowned. Why is there one more than last time? Did I count wrong? Let me count again. With that, she began to count again. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. At the side, the maid lowered her head and didn't dare to speak. At this moment, the woman suddenly looked up at the maid. "You said that Mu has left?" The maid hurriedly said. "Yes, Dean Mu has left." The woman nodded slightly. "It seems that this Mu has nowhere to go. Who knows what kind of sinister tricks he will use. There is also Dark World. These two shameless forces bullied Yi Xian with so many people. They are really heartless, inhumane, and shameless. This king can't tolerate this." With that, she turned to look at the maid and said angrily, "Go get this king's heavy azure dragon saber. This king wants to cut my nails." The maid. Another 3 days passed. Yi Xian was getting closer and closer to the Great Cloud Imperial capital. At night, the world was silent. There were no stars or moon. One couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. In a dense forest, Yi Xian was lying on a black flame horse, hugging his sword with both hands and sleeping soundly. But the black flame horse didn't sleep. It was still moving forward, but its speed was much slower. At this moment, the black flame horse suddenly stopped. Not far in front of it stood an old man. A 10,000 laws realm expert. Yi Xian jumped off the horse and walked towards the old man. Soon, he was in front of the old man. He knew this old man. It was the old man that he asked the other party to beat up in front of the city gate. When Yi Xian walked in front of the old man's aura suddenly dropped. Soon, the old man's aura became weaker and weaker. Soon, the old man's aura dropped to the divine combination realm. Lowering his realm, Yi Xian clenched the spirit elegant sword in his hand. The old man stared at Yi Xian. "Now, I am not bullying the weak." With that, he suddenly disappeared. The next moment, a palm was already above Yi Xian's head. When the palm fell, the ground under Yi Xian's feet instantly cracked. At the same time, a powerful palm force locked onto Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian felt as if he was being pressed by a mountain, unable to move. And at this moment, a powerful sword force accompanied by sword intent swept out from Yi Xian's body. Boom! The palm force that was suppressing Yi Xian was instantly broken. However, Yi Xian was directly sent flying dozens of feet away by the old man's palm. Yi Xian had just stopped when a shadow suddenly swept in front of him. Then, a fist with a powerful and overbearing force went straight for his face. Fast. Strong. Facing this punch, Yi Xian did not dodge. He held the sword with both hands and slashed down. Bang! Yi Xian was sent flying again. However, the moment he was sent flying, a sword light flashed across the field and went straight for the old man. The old man was expressionless. He lightly stomped his right foot and a stone shot out from the ground, directly hitting the flying sword. Bang! The sword light shattered and the flying sword flew back to Yi Xian. The old man lightly pressed his right foot against the ground while he strode forward with his left foot. He instantly seemed like an extremely hungry cheetah hunting its prey, and he instantly charged forward at an unparalleled speed. At the moment the old man charged forward, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A strand of sword light suddenly appeared in the dark night. The old man didn't retreat but advanced instead. He sped up and punched out. Bang! The sword light shattered and was blasted flying. Moreover, the old man had retreated to the spot. The sword that was blasted flying spun a few times in midair before it finally landed firmly in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian opened his palm and the sword fell into his hand. He held it in his hand as he walked slowly towards the old man, and there was a wisp of an excited smile on the corners of his mouth. This time, he'd finally met his match. I can practice. On the other hand, the old man's expression was extremely solemn as he stood in front of Yi Xian. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue to the next page. Yi Xian's battle strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Although he had suppressed his cultivation to the Divine Union realm, his battle awareness and some special techniques were still present. However, the moment they clashed, he discovered that Yi Xian's strength had already reached such a level that they were actually evenly matched. And Yi Xian was only at the Nether Passage realm. If he reached the Divine Union realm, thinking of this, the old man's expression darkened. The old man slowly clenched his fists as the ground beneath his feet trembled slightly. On the other hand, the sword force on Yi Xian's body also grew stronger and stronger at this moment. Gathering force. Gathering force with the sword. This was unique to the sword master. The old man squinted his eyes and clenched his fists even tighter. At the same time, a violent aura surged out from his body. The ground beneath his feet could no longer withstand the power he released and started to crack. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from the spot and a sword light slashed towards the old man. This sword was like a blazing sun that instantly lit up the surroundings as if it was daytime. One sword to decide life and death. He had not used this sword for a very long time because after he became a sword master, there was no longer anyone who was qualified for him to use this sword. The moment Yi Xian used his sword, the old man suddenly charged out and punched towards Yi Xian's sword with both fists. There were two dazzling balls of fist light on his fists. Wherever they passed, the air would instantly shatter. Not only that, but the powerful fist force also caused the ground within 100 zhang around the two of them to crack layer by layer. The sword and the fists were getting closer and closer. There was a moment of silence. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly rang out in the dark night. As the explosion resounded, the two figures retreated rapidly. While Yi Xian was retreating, the sword case on his back suddenly trembled violently. Then, 7 swords suddenly flew out and streaked across the field like 7 bolts of lightning. Opposite Yi Xian, the old man's pupils suddenly constricted. At this moment, he could no longer care about anything else and immediately stopped suppressing his cultivation. Boom! Without any warning, the 7 swords were sent flying. Dharma realm. At this moment, the old man had already recovered his cultivation. After recovering his cultivation, he easily blocked Yi Xian's 7 flying swords. If he hadn't recovered to the Dharma realm, the 7 swords would have been enough to kill him. The old man stared at Yi Xian in the distance. Blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his right hand had been cut open by a sword. At this moment, he had to admit that he couldn't defeat Yi Xian by suppressing his cultivation. However, he could injure Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian had already suffered serious injuries. Blood was continuously flowing from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. Not only that, but his entire face was sickly pale. It was obvious that he had suffered serious internal injuries. The old man suddenly grinned hideously. Yi Xian, you can't hold on any longer? The show has just begun. As soon as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man appeared beside him. Dharma realm. The middle-aged man's aura suddenly began to drop. In an instant, the middle-aged man's cultivation was forcefully suppressed to the divine combination realm. The middle-aged man stared straight at Yi Xian. Come, continue. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged straight at Yi Xian. However, he soon stopped. This was because there were 12 golden men in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian faced the middle-aged man. Come, continue. P.S. I've been writing books for 4 to 5 years, and I've never stopped writing. Recently, due to some family matters, I've barely been able to make it through 2 chapters. I feel guilty, but there's nothing I can do. Please forgive me. If you can't forgive me, you can scold me, but please don't insult my family. Thank you very much. Once the matter is settled, I'll return to 3 chapters. Everyone, I'm sorry for this period of time. Clasped fist, end of this chapter. Chapter 191. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian and didn't dare to make a move. Because he knew how terrifying the 12 golden men were. If he didn't lower his cultivation, he naturally wouldn't be afraid. But the problem was that he had lowered his cultivation, and the 12 golden men were all peak Divine Union Realm experts. Moreover, they were monstrous Divine Union Realm experts. 1 against 1, or even 1 against 3, he wouldn't have a problem. But 1 against 12? That was impossible. Not to mention that there was still Yi Xian nearby. Yi Xian's flying sword was still a huge threat to him. But he naturally wasn't willing to stop now. Because Yi Xian was clearly injured, it was a good opportunity to kill him. If he missed this opportunity and allowed Yi Xian to recover, it would be very troublesome. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment before saying, "Come out." As the middle-aged man's voice fell, another 2 myriad law realm experts appeared on the scene. However, the 2 of them quickly suppressed their cultivation to the Divine Unity realm. 3 peak Divine Union realm experts. Or rather, pseudo-Dharma realm experts. This time, Kuraki College only sent 4 of them, which was already a lot. Because Kuraki College only had a total of 9 Dharma realm experts, they sent 4 of them, which was quite a lot. The reason why they didn't send all of them was because they didn't dare to bet everything on one throw. Moreover, they had to be on guard against other forces. The middle-aged man glanced at the 12 golden men with grave and fearful eyes. Because the 12 golden men were really strong, and they were even a threat to him now. But at this moment, he didn't want to let go of this opportunity to injure Yi Xian. After pondering for a moment, the middle-aged man said, "The 2 of you hold back the 12 golden men. I will deal with Yi Xian." As soon as he finished speaking, the 2 people beside him charged out. As the middle-aged man was about to make a move, the 2 who charged out first were instantly pushed back tens of meters. The middle-aged man was stunned. Instant defeat? Yi Xian grinned. "Come on, let's continue." The middle-aged man clenched his right hand tightly. Not far from him, the old man who was almost killed by Yi Xian suddenly said, "I underestimated him. Go back and think about it." The middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian for a short moment before he said, "Retreat." After saying that, the 3 of them returned to their original states and turned to leave. Lowering one's realm. Yi Xian collected the 12 statues. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. The golden man frowned deeply. He hadn't expected Kuraki Gakuen to play such a trick. The 10,000 laws realm would lower their realm, and when they couldn't win, they would immediately restore their realm. This was simply cheating. If he wanted to kill his opponent, he had to be fast enough to kill him before his opponent could recover his cultivation level. Otherwise, once these people recovered to the Dharma realm, his sword would not be able to kill them. He also found that there was indeed a big gap between him and the Dharma realm. This gap couldn't be made up even with equipment. Yi Xian collected the 12 golden statues in front of him. In that instant just now, he'd directly consumed over 500,000 top-grade spirit stones. Fortunately, he'd stopped in time, otherwise, he would have consumed at least 1 million top-grade spirit stones. Even though the 12 golden statues were strong enough, they were truly too expensive. Every time he used them, his heart ached. He was still poor. Yi Xian sighed deeply. Even though he had over 1 billion gold coins and 2 million top-grade spirit stones on him now, he was actually very poor. Because he still owed the Immortal Indulgence House a lot of top-grade spirit stones. Moreover, every time he used the golden statues, he would be poor again. Make money. Work hard to make money. Yi Xian took a deep breath, and then he took out a golden sour pill and consumed it. After that, he leaped onto the black flame horse and disappeared into the boundless night. In the night, Yi Xian's expression was slightly gloomy as he rode the black flame horse. Because he'd noticed that no matter where he went, Kuraki Gakuen was able to accurately locate him. In other words, his whereabouts had always been in the grasp of Kuraki Gakuen. If this continued, he would only be in a passive position. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly sped up. The black flame horse looked very cool when it galloped in the dark because the ground behind it would burn with black flames. Fortunately, the flames didn't spread and only burned for a while before vanishing. 2 hours later, when the sky was turning bright, Yi Xian entered an ancient city called Mirror City. After entering the city, Yi Xian didn't immediately leave the city for the Great Cloud Empire. Instead, he went to the Immortal Indulgence House. The person who received him was the 6th-floor master of the Immortal Indulgence House. In the room, the 6th-floor master was silent for a long time, and then he said, "It'll be difficult for you to get rid of Kuraki Gakuin's surveillance." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" The 6th-floor master said in a deep voice, "If I'm not wrong, it should be Dharma Realm experts from Kuraki Gakuin or Dark World who are monitoring you. To be precise, it should be Dark World. Only Dharma Realm experts from Dark World can follow you without anyone noticing. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page, tracking you, little friend." Yi Xian asked again, "Is there a way to get rid of them?" The 6th-floor master smiled bitterly. This kind of experts, especially the assassins from Dark World, are good at concealment and speed. If you want to kill them, it'll be very difficult unless it's a law-controlling realm expert. Yi Xian thought for a while, and then he said, "How about this? I don't need to get rid of them. I just need to stop them. After that, I'll change my appearance and go to the Great Cloud Empire." The 6th-floor master glanced at Yi Xian. "Forgive me for being straightforward, little friend. Even if you go to the Great Cloud Empire, I'm afraid you won't be able to do anything. You'll even make the matter worse. Not only that, you might be in danger." In his opinion, what Yi Xian did was a bit unwise. Challenging the entire Dark World and Kuraki Gakuin alone? That was impossible. Yi Xian smiled, "Even if I don't go to the Great Cloud Empire, will they stop targeting me?" The 6th-floor master fell silent. Yi Xian said again, "They won't. They will target me again and again. Not only will they target me, they will also attack the people around me. Instead of waiting for them to be born, I might as well take the initiative to attack. Even if I can't kill them, it'll be good to scare them. Otherwise, I'll just passively wait to be beaten. It'll be really frustrating." The 6th-floor master looked at Yi Xian with a complicated gaze. "This is a typical werewolf. Even if I die, I'll bite off a piece of flesh from you. The Kuraki Gakuin and Dark World are really unlucky to provoke this guy." The 6th-floor master thought for a moment, then said, "How about this? I'll send someone. No, I'll personally go and stop the assassins from the Dark World that are following you. However, whether or not you can avoid their pursuit will depend on you." Yi Xian nodded, "Okay." The 6th-floor master was about to speak, but at this time, a middle-aged man suddenly rushed into the room. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian and the 6th-floor master, and said in a deep voice, "They've surrounded the outside." The 6th-floor master frowned, "Kuraki Gakuin?" The middle-aged man nodded, "Mu Qingxian wants us to hand over State Scholar Yi, otherwise." At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, "What's there to be afraid of? Just one word, kill them." After saying that, he picked up the sword on the table, and walked out. The middle-aged man and the 6th-floor master were stunned. But soon, Yi Xian walked back. He sat back, and put the sword on the table. After a short silence, he faced the 6th-floor master and the middle-aged man. "Is there a back door to escape?" 6th-floor master, the middle-aged man. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.